What's up everyone, how are you all? Today we are back with another blazing Naruto story. What if Fem Sasuke is possessive of Naruto? If you enjoy then please like, share and do comments. And also check the description to original creator of this beautiful creation. He sighed, I shouldn't have slept that day. I can't fail any more tests. Naruto put his head down. I'll let you redo it tomorrow. But it'll be the final time you take it. I recommend you study for once Naruto. Kakashi said, walking away. Naruto lifted up. Hey Sasuke, wanna study together tonight? Well, it will more like tutoring, but still. You always do so good in every subject anyway. I was lost in thought but suddenly snapped back to reality. Study? Tonight? It's fine with me. I kinda like tutoring you. You seem to listen to me better than any other teacher. Well, that's because you're better at it than any we have here. I'd much rather have you as my teacher. Any day, Naruto exclaimed. My heart began to pound so suddenly. He enjoys being tutored by me that much? I began to hope that he would start failing every test just so I could tutor him for a retake every time. Just to make him happy. You know, I've noticed that I go to your house more than you come to mine. I'm not bothersome, am I? Naruto said with a concerned expression. A sharp pain struck through my body. To think that my best friend would ever be a bother to me felt like the worst possible thing. No. There's no way you could be bothersome. I'd rather have you come to my house anyway. Since no one is there it gets kind of lonely. I didn't mean to say so much, I seemed desperate for attention telling him that I am always lonely. Well, that's a relief. My parents said you could stay at home anytime you want. I mean, since we're such good friends and all. They really hate that you live all by yourself. They probably wouldn't even mind if you lived with us. Naruto smiled. My face began to warm from the sound of that. Living with him would be truly amazing. Possibly sleeping in the same room, being able to wake him up every morning, make him any meal I wanted, being able to tutor him at any time, maybe even helping him shower. I quickly shook off the lewd thoughts that distracted me. It would be easier to tutor you if I did. I happily replied. We quickly turned our attention back to class as Kakashi told us to pay attention. For the rest of the day I felt so much excitement. I couldn't wait for that evening to come. I hadn't always thought of Naruto like that. When we first met in class, I thought he was sort of annoying with all his talking. Though that's what made me so interested in him. It was something that I was never able to do. He would talk to anyone about anything and was always determined to have everyone listen when he spoke his mind. We started out sitting with each other in lunch because I would normally sit alone and I suppose he noticed that. It started blasting off from there when we realized we had a lot of the same hobbies. I was always into boy stuff though. I wanted to see him more so we began to hang out after school and on breaks. He was truly my best friend. Well, actually my first best friend at that. But there was something that irritated me. I always wanted to say something about it. When we started to hang out, he stopped talking to other students as much. He usually tried to be everyone's friend but he would almost only talk to me. I felt as if I were holding him back socially and I didn't want to change his personality in any way. Though it also made me sad when he would talk to other people too. It was like I wanted him all to myself. As the slow day progressed, I found myself sitting down for lunch. I unwrapped my food and glanced around the classroom. As always, everyone was so full of energy and sat around talking. I was by myself at the moment but I knew that my best friend was about to join me. Across the room, Naruto came back from getting his lunch and prepared to eat with Sasuke. He entered the room and someone poked him. Hey Naruto, wanna eat with us? I noticed that you failed the test too. Shikamaru said, glancing at him. He sat beside Choji, who pulled out a large sack of food. No thanks, I always sit with Sasuke. Naruto proudly replied. Shikamaru looked over at her. That weird quiet guy? He looks really girly, why do you sit with him? Naruto glared at him furiously. Hey, don't judge him. He's my best friend. I'd rather eat lunch with him than anyone else. He walked off in fumes. Geez, what's with him? That guy is weird though. Shikamaru said to himself. Choji nodded as he finished his first bag of chips. Naruto sat down beside Sasuke with a smile. Don't you just love lunch? It's the best time of the day while in school, don't you think so too? Sasuke felt so happy when she heard that. Well, I love it now, it had been so awful in middle school though. I usually sat alone. Naruto looked concerned. I noticed that you sat by yourself earlier this year before we met. Do you not like being around people or something? I felt embarrassed. In middle school it was because I simply couldn't talk to anyone, but in high school I had some friends, just none good enough to sit with a lot. It was when Naruto noticed me sitting alone. When he started sitting with me every day. It was a little upsetting because he had sat with a lot of friends but gave that up just to sit with me. I thought maybe I could just sit with his friends too, but I guess they didn't want me to because I was girly or weird looking. No one wanted to sit with me, I guess. I'm used to it, you don't have to worry, it's okay. Naruto looked worried immediately. It's not okay. I can't believe that someone wouldn't want to sit with you. Well, even though you're used to it, you won't have to sit alone ever again with me around. He grinned and pointed at his chest. I bit into my sushi happily, a warm feeling spread through my chest. I felt more secure and the feeling of a permanent entity that will stay by my side forever. Well, thank you, I'll just hate it if you're ever absent. I replied with a laugh. We finished our lunch and continued the almost never-ending day. Normally the school day would pass by without me noticing. Of course, when I have something to look forward in the evening, it's the total opposite. Every time I knew that I would have the opportunity to do it, I wanted to do it so bad. Whenever I was alone with my best friend out of school, I wanted to reveal my secret and show him my true identity as a girl. Not only that, but tell him my feelings for him that always lingered but really began to flare. It was during the last class during the day when my mind came to a conclusion. I looked over at my friend. I will tell you the truth today, I will not lie to you anymore. Today when I tutor you, you will see the real me and I will confess my true feelings. The final school bell began ringing and the classes were unleashed into their free evening lives. Girls giggled and talked loudly. The guys looked for cute girls to talk to and two best friends slowly walked down the sidewalk as the orange evening horizon gleamed on the two. Is it okay if we just go straight to your house? I don't have anything else to do and I guess we could do some stuff if we finish early or something. Naruto suggested, scratching his head. That's fine with me, I replied, looking ahead as we walked towards my empty home. Naruto glanced down at his friend. She looked forward with an awkward expression. Naruto looked closely until she turned quickly. What is it? He scratched his chin. Today, someone told me that you look girly. No offense, but you kinda do. I gulped. Why yeah, I've been told that a lot. It's okay. I felt upset after saying that. It was the perfect moment to tell him the truth, but he might have freaked out and ran away. At least in my home, it wouldn't be that easy. The rest of the walk there was quiet. Me looking girly must have made things tense. We entered the front door into my dark home and prepared to study. I feared that he could hear my thumping heart. The sound filled my ears with excitement and fear. I'm really gonna do it, I thought. We sat down in my room on the floor and I continued to show him the lesson from which the test was over. It was math, so I had to explain carefully. After I went through the lesson with him, I gave him a few problems to do on his own. During this time, we sat very close and I had to watch him carefully to make sure he did it right. My face was right next to his and I looked over at him. I felt a drop of sweat trickle down near my ear. I felt myself getting closer to him. Okay, is this right? Naruto asked. I backed up and looked at his paper to observe. Wow, they're all right. How is it that you listened so well when I show you but you didn't understand at all when Kakashi-sensei taught you? He giggled. Well, I did say that I'd rather have you teach me. You're just good at it, and besides, it's easier to listen to a good friend than a boring teacher. I turned away because my face felt hot and I knew that I was blushing. We were so close then, I realized that right then and there would be the perfect opportunity. Hey Sasuke, are you alright? Naruto sat up on his knees. I took a deep breath and turned around. He was so close to me that I couldn't stand it. In Naruto T, there's something I have to tell you right now, I stated. He backed up in alarm. He suddenly thought he did something wrong. Sasuke? Is there someone that you really like, Naruto? Really like? I don't really like anyone like that. Well, for a while now, I've really liked someone. I can't hide it anymore. I screamed and grabbed Naruto by the shoulders and pulled his face close until his soft lips collided into mine. My heart was beating so fast it felt as if I were going to die. I actually spilled the truth to the best friend whom I love. I didn't hold back and pulled him in for a kiss to show how I felt. Though I suddenly became worried because I failed to mention that I'm not a boy. What just happened? I thought to myself, as I planted my hands into my drenched face. I sat on a bench somewhere near the school as the sun was going down. Something happened that made me run away from my best friend. My memory of it would not exit my mind. The event kept replaying in my head. It was something that I never thought would happen, and I learned something about her. Enter flashback. I got closer to my friend because something seemed to be bothering him. I was concerned deeply because he normally didn't show emotion. "There's something I have to tell you right now," he screamed. I knew then that something had to be wrong. He had never raised the tone of his voice in such a way. "Is there someone that you really like?" Another question was asked. At that moment, my mind became clouded with confusion. Is he trying to get a conversation about girl trouble because he is in love? If he is, I'll make sure to help him however I can. He is my friend after all. "No, I don't like anyone like that," I truthfully replied. I honestly had no feelings of love for anyone except for my parents. I was suddenly interested in what he had to say. It would be like Sasuke to hide his true feelings for someone, and he finally got the strength to tell me. "Well, for a while now, I've really liked someone and I can't hide it anymore," he continued. I was getting excited to hear his secret. I was looking forward to aiding him in getting his first girlfriend. Suddenly he turned quickly, tears flowing from his red bloodshot eyes. He gripped my shoulders tightly and pulled me forward without restraint. It happened so fast that I could not do a thing. I was pulled until I felt my best friend's lips being forced onto mine, and I had no idea why he did it. I pushed him away because I didn't know what else to do. I feared immediately that I was too harsh because he slammed against the wall and shivered in either fear or pain. Sasuke, what were you thinking?" I asked as I panted in surprise. The sight of Sasuke sent shivers down my spine. He lied against the wall with his knees curled up to his face and he whimpered loudly. I'm sorry. Do you hate me?" he said quietly, and then glanced up at me. His face dripping with tears and eyes filled with sadness. I felt a strong pain through my chest and suddenly felt awful. Even though I was only pushing him away from my kiss, I felt so terrible that I couldn't bear it. "Of course not, Sasuke. You're my best friend after all. But why? Why did you kiss me?" I said with a slight demanding tone. "I have been keeping a secret from you. Well, everyone, for a long time now. I couldn't stand it anymore. Though I only wanted to tell you. The only person I trust," he replied, wiping his drenched face. A clear thought quickly jumped into my mind. If he kissed me, he must always been secretly homo. I gulped and prepared to hear that exact statement. Ever since I began high school, I've been faking my gender. I'm a girl. My body suddenly froze. I heard something completely different from what I expected. It suddenly dawned on me that he had always looked girly. Or she always looked girly. He wouldn't lie to me, right? He has always been completely honest to me, so I have always trusted him. Why say such a thing if he were lying? He does act a little skittish and looks like a girl. He is also pretty small. I'm still calling him a he. This is so confusing. My thoughts wandered. I took a deep breath and did the only thing I could think of at that moment. After everything that had happened, I had no idea what to do. I stood up slowly and began to walk to the door. See you in school tomorrow. I closed the door without waiting for a reply and wandered away from her home in despair. I decided to walk to the school instead of going straight home. I had too many things blurring my mind, so I felt like going for a little stroll. Of course I felt guilty of what happened. I reacted in such a way so then Sasuke didn't believe my answer to her question, "Do you hate me?" Exit flashback. I slouched on the bench until the sky faded from orange to complete darkness. I decided that I had thought about it long enough and to head home. It frightened me though. How will she react tomorrow when I just walked out? I don't blame her if she never wants to look at me again. I pondered, approaching my doorstep. When I opened the door, my parents stood there with irritated expressions. I knew I was about to receive a scolding. "Where have you been, Naruto?" My mother bent over and gave me a stern look. Her long red hair fell off her shoulders. "I was at a friend's house." Sure. He helped me study in algebra." "Sorry, I lost track of the time." I stuttered out quite ridiculously. My father put his hand on my mom's shoulder and eased. You can't get mad at a boy who's out studying." "Hey Naruto, you don't have to refer to him as friend. We already know that you're talking about Sasuke. He seems to be the only person you even hang out with out of school anymore." I froze and my nervous heart began to beat faster. He's not the only person I hang out with. My eyes wandered in denial. When I thought about it, it was true. There was no one else that I saw out of school from my class. "He's always helping you out with your schoolwork. Maybe you should return the favor sometime. At least invite him over here. You wanna invite him over for dinner tonight, maybe? Mother offered. Coming here? He has before. But now he's a she. I can't show her my face from what I've done. My mind began to not even know what was going on anymore. I don't think he would want to, and I'm not hungry. I'm just going to go to my room. I mumbled, walking past them and going upstairs. Looks like girl problems to me. I could hear my father's remark on my way up. You have no idea. I replied to myself with no intention of them replying. After slamming the door behind me, I fell to my bed and the feeling of something in my pocket caught my attention. I pulled out my cell phone and felt as if my chest was lowering into my gut. Sasuke and I had always texted each other when we weren't hanging out. I flipped it open in fear but sighed in relief. He hadn't sent a text since the confession. I was not ready to talk to him just yet. I had accidentally said it again. I was not ready to talk to her just yet. I closed my eyes to purify my mind in an attempt to forget everything at that moment. I was suddenly surrounded by thick bustling fog and my perception was blurred heavily. I squinted to look forward in this void I stood in and a silhouette appeared before me. As it began to clear, I could see who it was. Only something was different. It was definitely Sasuke, but instead of a male school uniform, she wore a female's. The white top with a light-colored bow tie. The short dark-colored skirt. Black stockings. It was the first time I seen my best friend dressed as a girl. I had never noticed how slender my friend was, nor how girly she really was. She twiddled her fingers together and looked up at me with a concerned gaze with her large dark eyes. I love you, Naruto. Her voice was sweet, it could produce you to drool from just the sound of it. She leaned forward with her arms apart as if she wanted a hug. Did you hear me, Naruto? Did you hear me? The vision of Sasuke suddenly faded away and I swung upward quickly. My mother stood in front of me with a worried look on her face. Naruto, I said, did you hear me? You fell asleep last night in your school clothes. Are you all right? I panted in surprise and felt sweat trickle down my face. I felt as if I had a frightening dream, but it suddenly all came back to me. My best friend wearing girls' clothing. Did you catch something? You're all sweaty and your forehead is hot. My mother rested her cool palm on my head. I feel awful, I replied with a quiet tone. Maybe you should stay home today. You look and sound just terrible. Just go back to bed, Naruto, I'll notify Kakashi-sensei. She replied, leaving the room and slowly closing the door. I sighed in relief and lied back again. I wasn't going to have to face my friend just yet. I didn't even have to fake the illness because of what the dream had done to me. It was almost as if I really were sick though. I had the sickness of the feeling of losing a best friend. I changed into a different set of clothes and attempted to go back to sleep as I successfully faked an illness. Without even trying. At school, third-person transition. Sasuke took a deep breath as she entered her homeroom class that morning and prepared for one of the most awkward days of her life. Upon entering the room, she was a little surprised. She normally saw her best friend sitting in the corner of the room asleep at his desk as usual. That would always make her giggle and she would enjoy trying to wake him up for class. His ways of slacking off made her feel happy. She was always to correct and look after him. She took her seat and suddenly realized something that frightened her almost to tears. He was the only one who sat near her. Multiple empty desks separated her from other students. She had thought that she made other friends besides Naruto, but she was wrong. No one else wanted to spend time or simply sit with her like him. The entire day was almost unbearable for her and she couldn't wait for it to end. She had never knew how painful it was to be away from the person she loved and finally confessed to. The worst part of the day had to have been lunch. When she pulled out her lunch that she made, she looked up as usual to see her best friend offer some of his or ask for some of her food. When she looked up, no one was there. It had been a long time since she had ate lunch by herself and she hoped that it would never happen again. She was painfully wrong. At the end of the school day where she spoke no words, and no words were spoken to her, she made herself a promise. Because I completely ruined things between us, we can never go back. I must apologize for what I have done. He probably won't listen though, that's probably the reason he didn't show up today. He hates me so much now and we can never be the same again. Why? Why did I do it? Why did I have to ruin what we had? Tears began to rain upon her desk. As all the other students fled to their after-school lives, she sat there drenched in regret all alone like she had been all day. As I walked away from school, Drops began to fall from the dark sky and thunder rumbled in the distance. It put me at ease because it felt as if the sky was crying alongside me. I began towards my house and suddenly heard the sound of loud splashing footsteps from behind. When I turned, Kakashi-sensei stood there in the rain holding an umbrella in one hand. Kakashi-sensei? Something wrong? I questioned. I almost lost you. I had to run a little bit. I apologize, I meant to give this to you earlier. It's the assignments Naruto will need to make up. I was hoping you would be able to run it by his house for me. He replied, pulling out a small binder with papers inside. Just say no. Just say no. I can't possibly go to Naruto's house. I thought as he finished. Sure. I can do it. I felt regret surge through me as I replied. I just couldn't say no. Thank you. You know, I have a spare umbrella if you want it. Just give it back to me in the morning. He added. As he put his in out with it, I accepted it without saying a word and waved as I walked away. At least I wasn't going to have to be as soaked. I looked down at the binder and with a deep breath, it was off to my best friend's house. Upon my arrival, I stood at the front door with no movements and in deep thought. This is my chance. I will apologize for what I have done. I just hope he forgives me. I knocked twice on the door and shortly after it opened to show Naruto's beautiful red-haired mother greeted me with a smile. It's been a while since I've seen you, Sasuke. Did you come by to check on Naruto? Well, why yes. And I have some papers for him. I replied. I put Kakashi's spare umbrella at the doorstep and continued slowly to Naruto's room. I suddenly began to worry, the last time we seen each other outside of school. It happened. I counted to 5 to put myself at ease before knocking at his door, but when I did, my heart started to beat faster and I could feel my body's temperature rising. When he opened the door, he yawned and scratched his eyes. When he slowly opened them, they widened and he took a step back. Sasuke? May I come in? Kakashi told me to give you today's work, and I wanted to make sure you understand it. Oh and are you feeling okay? I stuttered. My concern made me blush. I felt as if I was worrying too much. He looked away. Yeah, I'm fine. See, come on in. When I slowly took a step in, I stood in the corner near the door as he took a seat at his desk. He looked up at me with a serious expression. Please close the door before we get on with the schoolwork. I want to talk about what happened the other night. I gulped and I could feel my body tighten up to the point where I couldn't control myself. Before I knew it, I was on my knees with my head down. He suddenly looked concerned as I began to sniffle and whimper. I am so sorry. Just like the storm outside, I poured upon his floor. Please. Don't hate me. I lowered my head further down in fear. I was alarmed when I suddenly heard chuckling. When I tilted my head up, he looked down at me with a smile. Why would I hate you, Sasuke? My breathing began to fall short and I could feel my body suddenly being wrapped in warmth. I'm still getting used to the fact you're not a boy, but honestly, that doesn't change anything. I didn't come to school today because I was too afraid to face you because I thought you hated me for abandoning you that night. Just to see that you're not mad at me means the world to me and now I couldn't be happier. He smiled. My mouth had been gaping open and I couldn't do anything about it. My entire body felt so much hotter and I was worried that he could hear my thumping heart. He doesn't hate me, and he's glad that I don't hate him. Even though he knows my secret, he's still okay with it. I can't speak right now. I'm too happy to talk. Please talk more, my sweet Naruto. But about that other thing you said. Do you really love me? He continued. I sat back against the wall. I was sorta spilling out my emotions when I said it. But yes. I guess it's true. I looked down. I just knew he would begin to feel weird. I had to tell the truth though. I'm sorry, but I don't know if I could ever love someone that is my best friend, and just now knowing you're a girl. I almost still look at you as my guy friend. I wouldn't want to ruin our friendship. He stood up and crouched in front of me and gave me a gorgeous smile. I smiled back, even though he didn't love me like I loved him. He still wished to keep our friendship and I was just as happy with that. He was still crouched in front of me and he held his hand out to help me up. Instead of taking it, I moved forward and wrapped my arms around him. You may not want to, but you can't stop me from loving you. I held him tightly and gripped tightly at the back of his shirt. We can't do this, he started. Calm down. Friends hug, don't they? I quickly replied. I could tell that I'd changed his mind and he gripped tighter. Yeah, you're right. We let go of each other and I handed him the binder with his makeup work. I explained to him what we had done that day and made sure he understood thoroughly. I also reminded him of the test he had to retake and made sure he knew everything that was going to be on it. We were still in the floor as I showed him everything, so it felt as if we were little kids, playing in the floor. Except we weren't exactly playing. Thank you, Sasuke. I'm glad I have such a smart friend. He smiled. I blushed. It's nothing. Maybe if you wouldn't sleep in class, it'd be easy for you too. He scratched his head in guilt. Yeah. I just can't help it. I usually stay up so late. Now that I think about it, what time is it? We glanced over at his alarm clock. 7:30? We questioned in unison. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to stay this long. I'll be on my way, I guess. I stood up and went for the door until I felt something tightly grab my ankle. I turned to see Naruto reaching out and grabbing me. You don't have to leave, you can stay. If you want. He looked down. I felt a warm sensation in my chest and I was glad that he wanted me to stay. I really didn't want to go. Leaving his home would have been like ripping open my chest and slowly tugging out my heart. Just to make sure, I'm going to go ask Minato and Kushina. I'll be right back. I left the room quickly in excitement. Even though I was a high schooler, I would always get so hyper and excited over being able to stay at my best friend's house. When I made it downstairs, Naruto's mother stood cooking dinner and his father sat at the dining room reading a book. Excuse me, may I spend the night tonight? I would hate to be a bother, but I'm helping Naruto with his schoolwork. So I began politely. You don't have to ask, Sasuke. You know you're always welcome in our home. We appreciate how much you help out Naruto. He severely lacks in his studies. Kushina replied. That's true, but at least he's adventurous like the main character of this tale of a ninja. Minato exclaimed. Kushina yanked it from his hands and tossed it into the wastebasket. I told you not to read that garbage. I laughed as I left the lively room. It made me feel like they were my family, since they welcomed me into their home and I had no parental figure like them. When I entered Naruto's room, he still sat on the floor. He had his cell phone opened in front of him texting away. We text so much when we don't see each other. I should have known he texts other people though. Why is this bothering me? Am I that selfish? I worried to myself. I was actually starting to feel a hint of jealousy from simply seeing my friend talking to someone else. I'll be back in few minutes, he quickly said as he left his room. I let him pass without saying a word, though I wondered heavily what his intentions were. I took a few steps down the stairs to listen to him talking to Kushina. I'm going to talk a friend really quick. Will dinner be ready before I get back? He said, entering the kitchen. You're just going to leave your best friend by himself up there? She quickly replied. Come on, Mom. I have other friends besides Sasuke. It'll only be a minute. He snapped back. She gave him a suspicious glance. Okay, but don't take long. You'll eat your food cold if you do. He ran for the door and slipped on shoes as he bolted out. I had stayed in the same position the entire time. I felt frozen and broken. He has other friends? What am I thinking? Of course he has other friends. It's obvious and shouldn't affect me. But why does my chest hurt so much? I thought as I laid my hand over my cold heart. I almost jumped from the sound of a voice suddenly beside me. Sasuke? Kushina questioned. WHWHWH what? Is dinner ready? I stuttered. Well, actually it'll be a little longer than I expected. I was wondering if you wanted to go ahead and take a bath. She smiled. Normally I would always take a bath at my friend's house, but at that moment I felt awkwardness on a whole different level. Oh okay, I guess I will, I said, walking back upstairs towards the bathroom. I continued at almost a brisk pace so I could perhaps get done before Naruto returned home. I lied nude in the hot water and tried to relax my worried body. I take baths here all the time. Why is it different now? Just because he knows I'm a girl? Am I afraid of him peeping? Would he want to? Would I let him? If he wanted to come in here to watch, would I? I stopped my one-sided conversation and sunk half of my blushing face into the water. I suddenly opened my eyes and realized that I had almost fell asleep. I began to breathe harder and stood up. Oh no, I lost track of the time. I've got to hurry. I don't want Naruto to get back knowing that I'm taking a bath. I stepped out of the tub and went for my clothes. I had always been sneaky about hiding my gender during baths. I would normally take boy clothing and sneak my girl's underwear too. I always made sure that none of the underwear was visible also. I reached into the basket and my body began to quickly heat up from embarrassment. I remembered my underwear, but not my change of clothes. I wasn't about to put my dirty ones right back on, so I went ahead and put on my panties and bra and tried to conjure up a strategy. I have my change of clothes in Naruto's room. I have a few changes that always stay here because I spend the night so much here. All I have to do is hurry across and change into them. I thought to myself as felt reassured. I stopped to look in the mirror on my way out. I looked over my petite body and lighter skin tone. My chest was lacking eye size, but I couldn't say the same thing about my rear end. Another girl would probably tell me to act like a girl because of my looks. I'd rather be comfortable around people than being thought of as hot or cute though. But would Naruto think this is cute? I shook off my thoughts and continued my mission for across the hall. I sprinted across and closed the door behind me. I opened the drawer in a flash and found my change of clothes. Though I opened it with so much force that one of Naruto's knickknacks tumbled to the floor and rolled under the table at the head of his bed. I grumbled under my breath and ignorantly went to pick it up. I lowered and got on my knees to look under the table. I suddenly heard a door open behind me and I quickly looked over my left shoulder. My eyes widened and my mouth dropped. Of course, there stood Naruto in the doorway. His face lit up with intense embarrassment and he stuttered out unknown sounds. Sasuke. He twitched and suddenly fell backwards and slammed back onto the floor. At that moment I felt so uncomfortable that I couldn't even begin to think straight. My heart was racing faster than it ever had and I felt that I was probably as blushed as he was. Naruto saw me, bending over, in my underwear. How am I ever to look at him again? I closed the door behind me as I quickly left my house and headed down the dark street. I glanced up at the night sky and felt at ease. I had received a text from one of my friends to meet him nearby. I really didn't want to leave Sasuke but I had to. We were starting to get closer and closer that night from my discovery of her real gender. I didn't want to take any chances for the time being and took him up on his offer. I stopped when I got to the end of the street near a convenience store. I stood under a dim street light and waited. I heard footsteps from the opposite street and looked over. A boy that looked my age was walking towards me wearing a hoodie. A dog on a leash walked beside him. His face started to become visible from the streetlight and gave me a smile. "What up, Naruto?" he said, as he approached closely. "Sup, Kiba?" I replied, giving him a grin back. "So, you said you were gonna be around here. Any certain reason?" He looked down at his fairly large-sized dog. "I was walking Akamaru and realized I was near your house so decided to see if you wanted to hang out for a bit. Wanna go get something to eat from the convenience store?" I replied, "Sorry, Mom has dinner for me when I get back home. You wanna see if she will let you eat at my place?" He put out his hands. "Nah, it's okay. I guess I'll head on home. Your parents don't really like me anyway. Oh, before I go, didn't you say you already have a friend over?" I gulped. I accidentally had told him that. Though he already knew about me and Sasuke's friendship. It was starting to get weird to tell other people about. Almost like they suddenly knew that he was actually a she when they actually didn't. "Why yeah, Sasuke is there. He's spending the night," I replied silently. His facial expression suddenly changed and he looked strange. "Oh okay. Well I better head back home. See ya." He tugged on Akamaru's leash and walked off. I didn't even reply. I was a little confused at his reaction. Sasuke is so nice to everyone. Why do they all treat her like that? I thought to myself as I headed home also. I was approaching my house and I went past the front gate and as I got to the door I said to myself, I don't care how people treat her. I'll always be there for her. No matter what. As I walked in, my mother was still cooking and my father was digging through the trash for some reason. "Hey Naruto, dinner isn't quite ready yet. It'll be a little bit." Oh, and Sasuke has already gotten in the bath. He must be done. I heard him walk across the hall a minute ago. Kushina said, turning to me. I nodded and slowly headed upstairs. About halfway up I began to feel an awkward sensation through my body. A girl that used the same bath and shower as I do. Well, she's always been a girl. Now it just feels so weird. I thought. I looked over at the door on the left, which was the bathroom. The door was open and she wasn't in there. Over at the door on the right, which was my room, was shut. Yeah, she's done. If the door is locked I'll just walk away. Don't know why she would change in my room though. I turned the knob and the door squeaked as it slowly opened. My heart suddenly began to race and I couldn't even say a single word correctly. SSS Sas Sasu Sasuke. She was at the head of my bed on her knees with nothing on but her underwear. The sight was forever burned into my memory, the slender legs and the curled-up feet and her blushed face looking over her shoulder. Her skin tone was light and beginning to blush too. Her short damp hair covered her neck and a couple drops of water dripped down her back. Her fairly large behind was covered by white panties and followed her curves perfectly. At what only lasted an instant felt like an hour and I couldn't take it anymore. I felt the room spinning and I toppled backwards onto the floor. I suddenly opened my eyes and I saw Sasuke leaning over me with a worried expression. "Naruto, are you alright?" she questioned quickly. I didn't answer because at the moment I was slightly confused. I leaned up to notice that I was lying on my bed and the door was shut. I looked over at Sasuke. She sat beside me on the bed and she was wearing her normal, pajamas. I suddenly remembered what had happened and remembered seeing her in her underwear in an awkward position. I looked away from her and my eyes twitched. "Why yeah, I'm fine." She exhaled loudly. "I guess you remember what happened." I nodded, still facing the other way. "I'm sorry, I was being stupid. I forgot my clothes in here and I didn't even lock the door when I came in here. I'm sorry you had to see that. I even made you pass out. I was able to carry you over here to the bed. I was worried so I waited for you to wake up." She explained in an introverted way. I looked over and smiled. "It's okay. I figured you would be more embarrassed than me though. And I didn't realize how small your body is." I tried to make her feel a little better. She gulped and started to blush again. "Yeah. I have always been kind of slender." After her reply, the room got very quiet and neither of us said a word. We both looked away with racing heartbeats and the tension was rising quickly. It was almost more awkward than before. Suddenly I heard Kushina from downstairs. "Dinner is ready, you two." We quickly headed out and wanted to get out of that quiet situation. We began to eat in the dining room and my mother quickly stated, "You two were being loud up there. Horse playing around?" She smiled. My eyes widened. The term, horseplay, made me a little nervous when I thought about being up in my room with Sasuke. "Why yeah, sorry," I replied. The rest of dinner was mostly quiet except my father's puns and Kushina's many questions for Sasuke as always. It felt like it lasted much longer than usual and eventually me and Sasuke were back up in my room. I lied on my bed reading my manga and Sasuke was playing a video game. It was getting late and the room was mostly dark except for the light from the television. I glanced over my page to see Sasuke. She sat with her legs crossed in front of the TV busy with her game. Seeing her small body in the boy pajamas suddenly made my skin warm up and I dug my nose into my manga in embarrassment. Why am I getting excited from seeing her in boy's clothing? Am I just remembering what I saw earlier? Her body was so small and petite but her butt was so round. I put my hand over my face and suddenly felt a little frightened. As I was lying on my stomach, I felt a lower part of my body start to cramp up and I quickly sat up with my legs crossed. This is bad. I've gotten this excited from simply remembering what happened. Okay, if my best friend is making me feel like this, I know what I have to do. I looked down to see what she was doing. She was still into her video game and paid no attention. I slowly leaned down and reached under my mattress. The first book that I felt I pulled out quickly and put it behind my manga. I examined which one I chose and grumbled in frustration. I read the title to myself and wondered why I had even purchased it in the first place. It was a manga porno that I had gotten from a store once without really thinking about it. My kinky best friend. The cover showed a boy with a surprised look on his face and a girl dressed in lingerie with her face against his with her tongue out. Even though I regretted to grab that one, I flipped it open to a random page. The first panel showed the boy from the cover with another shocked look on his face as he lied in bed. The other large panel showed the girl from the cover crawling towards him on the bed with a seducing look on her face. She wore the boy's boxers and one of the boy's shirts. A word bubble appeared from her head. "Let's sleep together tonight." I felt extremely awkward and closed the book. I lowered it from my face and suddenly gasped. Sasuke was getting on the end of my bed and crawling towards me. She said in a soft voice, "Let's go to sleep." I backed up. "WHWH what?" She suddenly looked confused. "Let's go to sleep. It's getting late and you still have to redo that test since you were absent today. You need to get some sleep if you want to remember what I taught you." I caught my breath and exhaled. "Oh okay. Yeah, let's go, I'm tired." She suddenly reached towards me. "Hey, what manga are you reading?" I jumped up and put them in my desk drawer. "Oh, they're not good. Just awful." You don't want to read them. I chuckled. She sat on her knees on the bed with a confused look. Okay. Well, where do you want to sleep? I was relieved that she got off the subject. You can sleep in my bed. I'll get the futon out to sleep on. She smiled at me and lied down. Thank you. I've had a lot of fun tonight. Feels like that I've had more fun here than I usually do. Well, I can think of a few reasons why, I replied as I opened my closet. She covered up her embarrassed face. After I prepared the futon, I was about ready to go to sleep. But something kept bugging me. I walked quietly over to my desk and opened the drawer which I put the dirty book. I glanced over my shoulder and saw Sasuke lightly breathing with her eyes shut. I quickly grabbed it and a small book light that I used for reading before bed. I quietly walked back over to my futon but stopped when I passed my Sasuke. She seemed to be asleep, so I leaned towards her. She lightly panted from her mouth and had her arms curled up towards her cheek. I stared for a moment. Wow, I never knew that a girl would look so irresistible from just sleeping. I hurried back to my futon in frustration. I attached the light and found the page that I had saw before we lied down. I saw the panels again where she was crawling towards the boy. I looked at the other page. She crawled so close to him that she was right at his face. She smiled at him and he still looked nervous. She suddenly grabbed him by the shoulders and pulled him in for kiss. It showed in detail how their kiss was, and I stopped for a moment and remembered my first kiss with my best friend. The softness of one's lips was indescribable. I continued to read. The boy backed away, not wanting to go any further with her. She smiled and said, "Playing hard to get, huh?" She leaned back and began to remove her pajamas. She had a small body and began to show it. The next page showed her nude body in detail. She said, "Do you still want to resist?" The boy's eyes got so large and was speechless. The girl crawled towards him once again and tugged on his boxers. She looked down in amazement. "What's this in the way? It looks like you are a little interested," she said with a grin. He closed his eyes and turned away. "No, I'm not." She pulled them off and it was clearly visible that he was very excited. He tried to pull his shirt down over it but she grabbed it quickly. He gasped. She leaned down and it showed in detail what she was doing to him. I closed the book and panted heavily. At first the book made me feel awkward but it began to excite me. The fact that the boy was in a similar situation made my blood boil. I turned off the book light and sat the book down beside me. That's when I suddenly noticed something. I glanced down and the same thing that happened to the boy in the book had happened to me. The covers were shifted strangely. I lifted the covers and decided to do something that maybe would get the lewd thoughts of my best friend out of my mind for good. I reached up and grabbed the tissue box from the nightstand. Third-person transition. Sasuke slowly lifted herself out of bed and looked over at the clock. It was 3:30 a.m. She wiped her eyes and stood up to go use the bathroom. When she stood up, she felt her foot hit something. She reached down and picked it up. This must be the manga that Naruto said was awful. Well, I wonder what it. She stopped and got a good look at the cover. My kinky best friend? So this is what he's into? Does that mean that he fantasizes about this kind of stuff? I wonder if he'd ever want me to. And never mind, she quietly said to herself. She gulped and felt even more embarrassed from the underwear incident. She sat it back down and continued to the bathroom. Naruto was in a deep sleep without a care in the world. When I opened my eyes, I felt the sunlight shine on the side of my face and just complete satisfaction, my perfect sleep. I sat up and let out a long yawn. When I glanced over, I noticed Naruto already sitting up and looking over at me with a blank face. I began to blush and looked away quickly. "Gee, good morning," I said softly. He looked away also and scratched his chin. "Good morning. How did you sleep?" he asked nervously. The tension was so high. We had both realized how awkward it was to wake up with the person you had originally thought to be the same gender. Also, the thought of us both sleeping in the same room, being so close to him, made my chest flutter. "I slept really good. I hope you did. You have that test today," I replied with a smile. He jumped up and was almost ready to pull the hair out of his head. "Damn it. I forgot. I had to do good on it. My grades have been slipping." I chuckled. "Don't worry, I think I taught you how to do it well. And if you start to fail, I can just tutor you again." "I don't mind." I looked down as I said it. I could feel my cheeks start to warm up again. When I glanced up, he was looking at me with another blank expression, but grew a big smile across his face. That's when there was a knock at the door and then it opened slowly. Kushina stepped inside with a smile. "Oh, good to see that you two are up. Why don't you come down for breakfast before you're late?" We went downstairs to eat a quick breakfast and prepared for school shortly after. I felt embarrassed going to the bathroom to change while he changed in his room. That was what we did every time I would spend the night, but that first time when he knew I was a girl was different. Just the thought of him knowing that there is a girl changing in his bathroom, instead of a boy. I wanted to smack myself. I would always think stupid stuff. He yawned as we made our way down the street towards school. I turned to him. "If you want to do good on that test, you should wake up some more." I scolded. He glanced over at me. "Sorry, I didn't sleep that well. I had a lot on my mind." I looked down. I knew he was referring to me. Because of my confession, I made him a nervous wreck. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have spent the night. I know that I'm a burden. And I know it hasn't been easy, since you know when." I stopped suddenly and was surprised. Naruto jumped in front of me and looked straight into my eyes. "Do not ever say that again, Sasuke. I can't stand it when you put yourself down. You always think more negatively than positively. Listen to me, your best friend, you're not a burden and you've never been one. And I know things are tougher since what happened, but we can get through this. Like I said, we are best friends after all. Don't worry, you can stay at my house anytime you want. Consider it your second home. You get it now?" He stared at me with a serious glare. I was frozen and couldn't move or talk. What he had said made me so happy that I couldn't keep my cool. I found myself reaching to wipe tears that had suddenly started to roll down my cheeks. I lunged forward without thinking and wrapped my arms around my best friend. I gripped him tighter than ever before and planted my face into his chest. "I'm so stupid," I said quietly. He put one hand around me and chuckled. "You're doing it again. Now let's go to school so I can ace this test that you tutored me for. I know that I'll do good." I released myself and nodded with my teary red eyes. "You'll do fine." We smiled, laughed and talked the rest of the way. My negative thoughts had finally cleared up and I couldn't have been happier. We even made a deal with each other. If he did good on the test, then we would go do lots of things together on Sunday, the following day. If not, I would have to tutor him again all Sunday. I had no negative thoughts about him failing. I trusted his biggest intention to pass the test would be so he could spend the day with me, but I didn't expect that. In class, after we finished all of our lessons, Kakashi-sensei approached our corner of the room and gave Naruto a cold stare. "Decided to show up today, I hope you're ready for this test." He handed him the paper and walked away. Naruto looked over and gave me a cheerful thumbs up as he began. As the other students left the class, I stayed with him the entire time. I knew that he couldn't ask for help or cheat, but I hoped that being in his presence would make him more confident. After what seemed like a year, Naruto set down his pencil and went to Kakashi's desk to turn in the test. He slammed it down on his desk with a smile. "Go ahead and put 100 on that." Kakashi stared at him with no expression. "As much as I believe you, I'll grade it though, just in case." He smirked with obvious sarcasm. We sat in our desks and waited patiently for him to finish. The agony of waiting was getting to Naruto and he chewed through every nail on each finger. His confidence had been thrown out the window and he was nervous all of a sudden. I had remained patient the entire time though. I had lots of faith in my friend. Naruto practically jumped from his chair when Kakashi set down his pen and looked up at us. "Naruto," he said sternly. Naruto stood tall with sweat dripping down his face. "Yes?" Kakashi glanced down and then back up at us. "At first I thought you might have cheated, but you were tutored by the smartest person in class. You got a perfect score. You were right about the 100. The sweat and negativity vanished from Naruto and he put his arms into the air. "Yeah. I knew that I made that from the beginning. I was never worried. I hope that you're ready for some fun tomorrow, Sasuke." My heart started to race. I was so happy that I was able to make him pass and I was getting rewarded by being able to spend the entire day with him. But, wouldn't that be a date? I started to think to myself. What's wrong? Naruto noticed my sudden thoughts reflect on my expression. Nothing. Let's get going, I quickly replied. We walked along the sunset-illuminated street towards Naruto's home. I still felt unwelcome just like everywhere I went, but he had said it was okay. When we were reaching his front door, he turned to me. "So what do you want to do tomorrow?" I started wondering about all the wonderful things we could do together and started to feel joy and excitement. "Well, we could do our usual, like the arcade, manga store, or the restaurant with the ramen you love so much." I replied. That sounds awesome to me. Just let me know, anywhere you want to go, I'll take you. He grinned. But tomorrow is supposed to be for you because of passing the test. The day isn't for me. I explained. He sighed. Well then, if it's for me, I say we do what you want to do too. I smiled. Okay then. Only if you want to. We wandered to his room where we had our usual fun. He read while I played his video games and then we would swap too. I had suddenly lost track of the time and headed for the door. Naruto jumped from his bed and stopped me. If you're going to ask my parents if it's alright to stay, just stop, because they had something to do tonight and most of tomorrow for work. Haven't you noticed them not here? I thought for a moment. Now that I think about it, I haven't seen them since I arrived here. Well, that means that I'm all alone with Naruto here. Oh no, now I feel so awkward. And when I take my bath tonight, it's going to get even more awkward. I shivered in fear and he glanced at me with a weird face. Then he approached me closely and examined me. Are you feeling alright? You're kinda pale, and you're shivering. I slowly backed up and continued with my game. I'm alright. He shrugged in confusion and went back to his book. After it was quiet for a little while, I decided to get something off my chest that had been bugging me. In Naruto, I started. He turned a page in his book. He replied. I just wanted to thank you. For what? Well, for being so nice to me all this time and treating me good. I didn't think anyone would ever want to be near me because of how introverted I am. I'm glad that you took the time to introduce yourself to me. I probably would have never been able to do it. And even when you know my secrets, you treat me the same and it makes me feel normal. Thank you. I finished. He stopped reading his book abruptly and scratched his chin. He seemed to have engaged in deep thought. What is it? I asked. Well, you say you feel normal, but I thought of something that might make you feel even more normal. And it is my day tomorrow, so I hope that you'll do it. He began to say. I was interested in what he was going to offer or ask. Okay, what is it? He exhaled loudly as if he was actually nervous. Will you be a girl tomorrow when we go do stuff? I froze and suddenly had no idea what to say. Note. POV of Sasuke. I can't believe I'm really doing this. It's not really what I want to do, but it's what he wants. But he wants me to be myself. I wonder if being a girl is truly my real self. I haven't been one in so long. Will he think I'm cute? Is this just some ecchi plan just to see me showing skin? I asked myself so many questions, but I shook my head to get rid of them. I opened my eyes again and I was still standing awkwardly in a clothing store for girls. I had one of those moments when you don't know if you're really in the place you're in because it's the last place you think you should be. I slid the tops and dresses down the rack without taking a good look and planted my face into my palms. I should just go home. I may be a girl, but I just can't do this. I turned to happily walk out of the store, but a familiar face suddenly stood before me. Sasuke? The girl questioned with a voice so soft that you could sleep on it. Oh, you are hi. Hinata, right? I replied with a friendly grin. She smiled back. Her light skin tone was shown in a beautiful light dress and her long dark hair swooped over her shoulders perfectly. Why yeah, we haven't spoke much, but we've been in the same class for a couple of years. I notice you always with Naruto. She broke eye contact at the end of her sentence. She looked around and her face slightly blushed. Yeah, he's my best friend. I said awkwardly, suddenly thinking of my confession and progression in our relationship. Hinata looked around, then back at me. So, why exactly are you looking around in a woman's clothing store? I froze and it hit me. I'm my male self in a woman's store. I forgot to think of an excuse if I see someone I know. My older sister is in town and I thought that I would come in to buy her a dress, but I'm having trouble finding one. I replied quickly. Immediately after, I gave myself a mental pat on the back. It was an excellent excuse. That's great, I could help you if you don't mind. What does she look like and what size does she wear? Hinata asked. I froze again, but another good excuse shot into my mind and I also came up with another way of being able to get her opinion. She looks almost exactly like me, except her hair is longer. In fact, she wears basically the same size as me. So does that help? I replied. She scratched her chin and glanced around the store. She suddenly tugged at my hand to pull me over to another aisle. There were dresses on it too, just smaller than the ones before. I was glad that I didn't get one of those. She smiled and pulled one off the rack and placed it in front of me as if she were seeing how it would look on me. What are you doing? I questioned quickly. I feared that she knew my biggest secret. Well, you said that she looks like you, so I'm just seeing how it would look on you and giving that image longer hair in my mind. Sorry if that was weird. She apologized. Oh, it's okay. It just freaked me out at first. I chuckled. After she did that with many dresses and we talked about different colors and styles, she handed me a light blue one that was a perfect length between short and long. It was a very beautiful dress and I actually thought that I might look decent in it. After paying, we said our goodbyes and we were on our separate ways, but she turned to me quickly before walking away and said, "TT, tell Naruto that I said hi. Please." Her cheeks started to flush again and she gave me a smile. "I sure will." I grinned back. As I left the store and headed down the street, I looked down at the dress folded into the bag and seen a mental image of me wearing it. I don't really care if it looks good or if I get embarrassed. I just want Naruto to like it. The evening before, Naruto POV. The tension was building up as I conjured the strength to ask her that question that could have many different answers or outcomes. Sasuke had always acted like a boy and lead a secret life. I just wanted her to be herself at least for once. It made me sick to think that she couldn't be herself all the time. Is she just too shy to show her true self? Or are there more important reasons behind it? I asked myself. I decided just to forget about my questions and just say what was on my mind. She looked over at me and I exhaled loudly. "Will you be a girl tomorrow when we go do stuff?" I closed my eyes immediately after in embarrassment. I didn't even want to look at the expression that she was going to give me. What? She asked. "I think you heard me. Please just answer me and be honest if you don't want to do it." I said sternly. I haven't been a girl in years though. I just don't know. You really don't know the reason why I hide my gender. She replied, looking down in shame. I got off the bed and knelt beside her to put my hands on her shoulders. "Then please tell me why. You can be honest with me. I'm your best friend, so you can tell me absolutely anything. Don't worry about being embarrassed about anything with me." She slowly looked up at me with the most vulnerable, depressed eyes that I had ever seen. She looked back down and began to explain. "Ever since I was little, I've always had trouble talking to people. It's mostly because my parents died when I was growing up and having no family, I had no one to evolve any relationships with. It was just me who didn't know how to be myself and speak my mind. Not ever having anyone to call a friend, I decided just to leave the town I had stayed in and moved here. That was in middle school when I started school in this town. That's when my false identity of a male was born. I knew that it would be a little easier being a male because that's who I mostly had trouble talking to. For the most part, it seemed to work and I kept going along with it. I have talked to a lot of people and my social skills have gotten better, but there was never anyone that I acknowledged as a friend. No one still seemed to want to really hang out with me because of me being quiet and not speaking much. I've always been the weird antisocial kid. So for a long time I really had no friends. That was until I met you, Naruto Uzumaki. In this lonely dark world, you're the only one that has showed me that there is actually some light and happiness to be found." Her voice began to get higher and tears dropped to the floor. After she was finished explaining, she looked back up at me with those same vulnerable eyes. Except then they were red and watery, making her appearance even more irresistible. I sat listening with my mouth wide open. I had no idea of her past and I honestly had no idea how rough she really had it. It irritated me to no end that no one took the time to be her friend or to even speak more to her. I gritted my teeth together and my mind started to light in fury. I tightened my fists and she began to say something. "I'll do it, just because you want me to. I hope it makes you happy." She paused because I embraced her and pulled her into my chest tightly. The grip was harder than any of our hugs before and I said softly in her ear, "I really don't mind if you're a girl or not tomorrow. All I ask is, please be yourself. I just want to spend the day with the real you and don't have a worry in the world. As long as you're with me, embarrassment will never be a problem. If only I had known your past sooner, I would have never left your side for anything. Don't you worry about ever being alone ever again. As long as I'm alive, you'll never be lonesome ever again." I felt tears exit my eyes as I finished reassuring her. I didn't want to cry, but the thought of seeing her alone made me want to die. She buried her face into my shoulder and her warmth spread to my neck. I smiled as we held each other for the longest hug we had ever had. I knew that I wasn't taking it too far because I could tell that she had so much trouble telling me her past. Probably because I was the first person she told. My shoulder was starting to feel moist from her constant flow of tears. I felt warmth in my chest knowing that she was able to feel comfort from my presence. To send a message to her, letting her know that she would never be alone. The next day, still POV of Naruto. I took a deep breath as pulled down the front of my shirt to get it down further than my undershirt. I was finished getting dressed and was ready for a good day. Though my breathing was short and my heart thumped. Am I actually nervous? I'm just spending the day with my best friend, it's nothing to be worrying over. But, why do I feel like this? I said to myself, looking in the mirror at my frowning face. I opened my phone and checked the time, it's not even noon yet, but that's when she's supposed to be here. So I've got about an hour. Come on Naruto, catch your breath, this is not going to be that awkward. I'm sure she is already getting a dress by now. I'm actually going to see my best friend in a dress today, I'm so excited but so nervous. I bet she'll look cute, she does have a small light-toned body. I slapped my face with my palm in regret. Quit saying these weird things Naruto, don't talk about your best friend like that. I said again as I left the bathroom and went into my room. I guess I got ready too early, so now I have nothing to do until she gets here. I would text her, but I might bother her while she's getting ready. I suppose I'll just lay back for a little bit. I lied on my bed sideways and let my legs dangle off the side. At first I planned to simply stare at the ceiling, but after a couple of minutes, my eyes felt heavy and they slowly closed. How does it look? PP, please be honest. I sat up to wipe my crusty eyes and looked around in confusion. The room was completely normal and Sasuke stood there in a light dress. I could tell then that I woke up and it was not a dream. Oh, sorry, I fell asleep. It looks great, I answered, looking her over carefully. It suddenly made my blood boil. She had her arms crossed and her eyes turned away in embarrassment. The way her body curved and the tone of it went so perfectly with the color and size of the dress. It wasn't too long and it was short enough to show the right amount of skin. It was sleeveless so her slender neck and little shoulders were out in the open. She began to slightly cross her legs and she tugged at the bottom of the skirt. Why you sure? She stuttered in a cute way. I was feeling so weird just by looking at her, so I closed my eyes for a moment. Why yeah, it's fine. Upon opening them again, I backed away quickly. What are you doing? Sasuke had moved her face so close to mine that they couldn't have been closer than touching. She grew a deceiving grin across her face. Do you think that the dress is fine, or do you think that I am fine? Her voice was slow and seductive. I looked down and gasped. She had been sitting on my lap with her legs apart. The dress was folding up and I could actually see her panties as they sat on me. I looked away quickly. She had moved slightly and the spot that she was sitting on began to feel cramped. Why are you? I began, but was interrupted by a finger being pressed against my lips. Shush, don't speak, just watch. I think I know what you really desire now. Don't worry, I'll take it off right away, she said slowly, as she began to pull her dress skirt up even more. I immediately put my hands in front of my sight and pleaded for an answer. Why are you doing all this? With my eyes closed and my hands out, I felt a sudden tug and grip at my shoulders. I suddenly felt all the different emotions and feelings that surged through me wipe out completely. So it actually was a dream, it just had to be so realistic. Though something still wasn't right. I still felt the tug at my shoulders and when I opened my eyes, Sasuke leaned over me with a worried face. Oh good, you're finally awake. I thought I'd never be able to wake you up. You were having a pretty bad nightmare. So bad that you were squirming all over the bed and telling someone to get off of you. She chuckled and a cute smile grew. I looked over her again and noticed something. She wore a normal long-sleeve shirt and dark pants. Wait, you're not wearing a dress? I asked, lifting myself up. I am. It's just that I thought that I could get ready here. It's my first time getting ready for something like this and I didn't want to do it alone. She responded quietly. Well, I don't know if I'll be of much help with it. I don't know much about girls getting ready. I replied with a laugh. She laughed back and revealed the bag she was holding. It had the name of the store on the side. That's when I started becoming nervous again. So she really did get something? Well, she said that she would. I don't know why I'm so surprised. Because of that dream, I'm kind of excited to see how she will look in it. Though I doubt she will act as dirty. My thoughts caused me to blush. I looked up to see her leaning down and looking straight at me. Why are you acting so strange? Is it really because you want to see me in a dress? She smiled with an innocent expression. My hands shot up in denial. No, I don't. Well, I do. But, damn it, you know what I mean. She chuckled again. You're so funny. Well, I'm going to get ready now. Don't go crazy waiting on me. A smile broke across my face when she walked out of the room. I loved seeing her in that mood because it was so rare. She must be really excited about today. She hardly ever makes jokes like that. I'm just glad she's so happy. It's so amazing because she was so down yesterday when she told me her past. I don't think she's ever simply spent the day with someone. Well, of course she hasn't. She did say that I am her first friend. Knowing that makes me want to be the only one that spends time with her. Why have I become like this? I stopped talking to myself when there was a quiet knock at my door. I am done. Do you want to see? She asked in a soft voice. Why, yes please, I answered quickly. My jaw dropped and my face lit up when the door opened to show my best friend. In a dress for the first time in front of me. Possasuko. I gulped as my hands slowly neared the door. I was pondering whether to even show him at all and to just leave his house. I looked down to pull the dress down a little more. I felt like I was almost naked even though the dress was just a few inches over my knees. With a last deep breath, I used just 2 fingers to tap on the door to make sure he was ready to see me and what he wanted. The only thing going through my head was wondering whether he would be happy by it. I am done. Do you want to see? I asked through the door. Why, yes please, he replied. My stomach churned. He sounded excited but nervous at the same time. Please like it, I'm doing this for you. I thought to myself as I slowly opened the door. He sat on the bed with a curious look at first, but then it completely changed when he got a good look at me. His mouth dropped in awe and his eyes widened. He even began to stutter out something. WWO. I turned around and stared at the floor in shame. Don't stare like that. It's embarrassing. I could hear him stand up and walk up behind me. It gave me an eerie feeling that sent chills down my body. Sasuke, you don't have to be so on edge. You look really cute. A hand was placed on my shoulder. His palm was so warm that I started to calm and my heart started to thump so much faster from his words. Though they were too good to be true. And no, I don't. I turned to him and he glared irritatedly at me. I thought I told you not to put yourself down like that. He then smiled. I found myself smiling too, and something had finally come to realization. I put one hand on my head and twiddled with my soft hair that had recently been washed thoroughly. Naruto realized the same as me. HHMM. Should we do something to your hair? His expression showed deep thought and ideas. I realized that because I finally noticed that I still looked the same, except with a dress. Even though we planned to do something out of town, someone could still recognize me as Sasuke the boy. Well, someone from school might recognize me. I've never really fixed up my hair before. I'm not sure how to do it. I pouted, caressing my shoulder-length hair. Well, for a girl, your hair is kinda short. But as a guy, your hair is sorta long. What about a simple ponytail? He observed me and placed his hand on it, caressing it downwards. My cheeks warmed up and I realized how nice it would feel for him to help me with my hair. I had no idea how good it felt, just for him to touch my head. Is it long enough to do that? I questioned. Of course. Oh, and don't worry, I know how to fix it into a ponytail. I've seen my mom do it a lot and I know that I could do it with yours. And it's shorter so it should be easier. He assured. After he came back with a brush and a ponytail holder, he sat me down in his desk chair and he stood behind me. I felt a fluttering sensation inside of my chest and I smiled greatly. Not only was it my first time getting my hair done, but it was also by my best friend whom I loved so much. I felt slight tugging at the back of my head at first. He brushed it downwards. Then he had some of my hair in his hands and brushed upwards from my neck. Next I felt very strange. It felt as if he tied something around the bunch of hair that he held and he places his hands on my shoulders. All done, he exclaimed. I was very surprised. Already? I thought it would take longer than that. I replied. It's actually really simple. I could teach you sometime if you want. Well, I don't have to do that. You probably won't wear anything like this again anyway. Oh, let's go to the mirror to see what you think. Naruto pulled my arm excitedly to the bathroom. I got a look at myself and turned away. I actually looked like a girl for once. It didn't look bad though. My hair was still parted in the front and with my hair still a little messy on top. The short tail in the back looked really nice. It all looked good with my black hair color. Naruto leaned to me. What's wrong? You don't like it? He frowned. I do like it. I love it. It's just that I've never seen myself like this before, so it just startled me. Thank you so much. I looked up at him with a smile. I began to feel awkward as he leaned very close to my face. I had no idea what he was about to do, so I fearfully closed my eyes. Even though a lot has changed, you still look a lot like your boy self. Could you perhaps? No, never mind. I doubt you'll want to do that. He explained. I gave him an irritated look. Oh come on, what is it? You've already got me in a dress and with my hair up. What more could you want me to do for you? I blushed as I said it. My lewd mind wandered with many amazing things. See, you already seem like you won't do it. I'll just be out with it. Will you put on a little makeup? He replied with a worried expression. I gasped, WHWA? Makeup? I just don't know about that. Please do it. His eyes wandered for excuses. You might get recognized from someone, and, though you look fine without it, you'd look good with it too. I began to feel completely engulfed with heat and crossed my arms in denial. Well, if you really think someone will recognize me. Naruto clapped with happiness. Alright. It's a yes then. I know where my mom keeps hers. I'll go get it. He flew from the room in a hurry. I stood in confusion. Does he really want to see me look like a girl that much? Well, if it's what he wants, I don't mind, I said quietly. When he came back, he held mascara and different kinds of lipstick. After helping me with the mascara, we looked in the mirror. I was beginning to look more and more girly. When he showed me the different colors of lipstick that he had with him, I made it clear to use the lightest one. I decided on a very light pink that was a similar color to skin. After a little while, we looked at the results in the mirror. I felt so strange that I was speechless, but Naruto definitely wasn't. Wow, that looks nice. You look so different, so no one will recognize you. He smiled. I was still frustrated by the makeup and sternly replied, well, we should get going soon, it's already noon. He smiled again and we left shortly after. We locked the house up because his parents were still out for work and headed for the train station. The town with all the shops we had visited a couple times before was about an hour away. But that time it would be completely different because at that point he knew who I really was. After a crowded train ride that felt as if it were a century, we stepped off at our stop and prepared for a promised day of fun. Naruto looked around and the wind blew back his blonde hair as he carried a great smile. Sasuke, do you remember the first time we came here? I smiled too as I easily remembered that great day. Of course. It was shortly after we had first met and you said that you wanted to come here but none of your other friends were able to, so you invited me. I remember that I was so nervous. You're not nervous now, are you? He looked slightly concerned. I kept my smile, far from it. We walked down the busy sidewalk crossing many intersections and continued to our destination. Naruto practically jumped in the air when we were in front of his favorite shops. Alright, we're here. You sure that you want to go in? We can do whatever you want to do first. Naruto suggested. Oh come on, you know that I love this stuff too. I think you feel weird walking into a manga store with a girl. I mean, you already have before. I replied. He exhaled loudly. Sorry, I guess I do feel a little differently here, especially with my buddy in a dress and makeup. I looked away. When you call me your buddy, it makes me feel like a boy. He laughed and tugged at my arm to go inside the store. We were just as amazed as when we entered it the first time. The store was quite large and many tables and aisles were filled with many types of manga. I was looking around in awe and Naruto nudged me. Here's some money, get yourself something. He grinned. I looked down hurriedly. No, it's okay. I have a little with me. He glared with a frustrated expression. I don't care. Take it. Or perhaps you are planning to make me feel bad by not letting me help out my best friend? He changed to a smirk. I was caught in his perfectly devised trap and I had no choice but to accept it. Okay, I took it slowly. I'm gonna go look at something over here. We can stay for a while so you can just go see what you want. Naruto said as he disappeared into one of the aisles. I pouted. I get the feeling that he doesn't want me here. It's like he's avoiding me, I thought as I gloomily walked through the store. Note asterisk POV Naruto. Why do I feel like this? I thought as I peeked from around the bookshelf. I had abandoned my friend right there in the manga store and for stupid reasons. Sasuke looked down and walked away from where I left her and began browsing the manga. I put my hands into my face and began wondering whether or not I was the worst friend ever. It's not my fault, maybe I shouldn't have gotten her to dress like that. Ever since we left, my chest has been pounding just from looking at her. There's no way that I'm attracted to my best friend. I am just not accustomed to seeing her as a girl. But man, she looks so damn cute today, I said quietly to myself, holding my palm on my chest. I continued through the aisle I stumbled blindly into and quickly wanted to escape it. This is the adult section? I forgot how freaking close it is to the front. I better just get out of this section before my thoughts came to a halt when I glanced over and twitched in surprise. They have a new volume out for My Kinky Best Friend. I thought as I picked it up and examined it closely. After carefully reading the description on the back cover, I nearly dropped it where I stood. He gives in from her white temptations and finally their friendship is taken to a whole new level. The words fell from my awkward mouth. Will this actually happen to us? No, Sasuke is too good of a person to try seducing me. But I did kind of force her to dress up for today. I just wanted her to be herself for once, but some part of me really wants to see her be a cute girl instead of the normal guy friend that I used to know. Damn it, I told myself that I wouldn't look at her any differently. I can't ruin what we have. I took a deep breath and went back to find my friend. Back to POV Sasuke. There's really nothing interesting here. I just hope Naruto is having a good time. After all, this day is meant for him, I said to myself, placing down another uninteresting book. My chest tightened and my body warmed as I suddenly recognized the same warm hand on my shoulder. I turned quickly to my friend whom I missed even though we had parted only for a moment. Sorry about leaving ya hanging there. I just needed to check about one book. You ready to go somewhere else? Naruto grinned with unusual blushing covering his cheeks. I nodded and we were out the door looking around for something else to do. We decided to stop by the ramen restaurant and Naruto enjoyed a huge bowl of ramen as usual. We finished our food quickly because we were excited about the place next door. When we stood in front of it, we were both so amazed at the flashing lights and colorful advertising of the video game store. I don't remember this place being this big. I spoke with a dropped jaw. I heard that they added an arcade but I was never sure. But it's obvious that they did. I mean, look how much bigger it looks. Naruto gazed down at me but quickly glanced away. It kept bugging me how he would do that. It was as if he didn't want to even look at me for a second. I closely followed him inside through the crowd and gripped the back of his shirt tightly and held my head to him so that I wouldn't lose him. We escaped the crowding of the front door and ended up in the almost empty arcade portion of the store. Why is it so crowded? I questioned, wiping my dress downwards. He looked over but his eyes wandered away. I think a new game came out today. So it will mostly be empty here in the arcade. He crossed his arms. I was tired of wondering without answers so I placed both of my hands on his crossed arms. Naruto, please be honest with me, why are you acting so strange? His eyes closed and his breath exhaled. It's nothing. I was beginning to regret even going with him because I felt as if it were my fault. If there's a problem then we can work it out. What's wrong? I stood taller on my toes and closed the gap between us, trying to show him that I was truly concerned. He began to twitch and his face exploded in color. It can't be worked out. I've already went against what I promised myself I wouldn't do. He slowly glanced back down and his expression sent fear through my body because I had never witnessed it before. His breathing was beginning to speed up and his eyes narrowed as he gulped loudly. I was about to ask him again what was wrong but I was blown away at his next actions. He lifted his crossed arms and held my shoulders tightly as he yanked me upwards towards his face. It all happened so quickly and before I had even realized what happened, our lips were touching once again. Except, I was not the one who initiated it. Little bit before, at the ramen shop. Can't think straight. This is all too much to handle and I'm about to lose it. I've never felt this way before and I don't know how to handle it. I gulped, closing my eyes for just a moment. When I opened them, my empty bowl stared at me and one pushed it away. Sasuke leaned over with a concerned expression. You're done? Usually you eat more than one bowl of your favorite food. She slurped a dripping noodle into her mouth. I glanced back down as a cold feeling tore through me. It feels like I'm with a completely different person. Yet I still have that warm feeling that it's my best friend here beside me. I pondered. Sorry, I'm excited about where we're going next. Did you see the place next door? I grinned. It was very flashy with lights but I don't know what it is. We didn't go there last time we were here. She placed a finger on her cheek in wonder. I felt happy that I was able to let her know what it actually was because I knew that she would get excited. It's a video game store that opened not too long ago. I think it was being made when we were here the first time. Now that I think about it, how long ago was that? She smiled. It was 6 months ago. About a week after we had met. You wanted to visit the neighboring city and visit some stores, but none of your other friends wanted to or weren't able to. So you invited me and we weren't at this town long, but it was still fun. The second time was about a month later when some new manga came out and you invited me again. And a couple times after that we came so that you could get some new books when you more money. I remember it all so clearly because of how amazing it all was. Like today, I felt as if I were going to topple out of my stool as I heard her answer me. She remembered every time we were together so vividly. I am her first best friend to keep track of, but still, did she really enjoy being in my presence that much? Now I feel bad for forgetting our first time here. Though I'll never forget the day she confessed to me and my train of thought halted to a stop when I thought of the kiss. It was my first and hers also. Was it wrong to share a first kiss with a very close friend? I looked closely at her pink lips, reminiscing on how soft they were. She had been staring at me as I kept reacting in my mind how well she remembered. She began to blush and stuttered out, sorry if that was weird. I just remember it so well because I had a lot of fun. I smiled. Don't worry, I think it's pretty awesome. I don't have a good memory. She changed her depressed expression into a very excited one. Well, I see you're done too. Let's go try that place next door. I lifted from my stool and offered my hand to help her down from hers. She slowly reached out, and when her hand reached my palm, her warm touch sent a chill through me that didn't feel quite right. When her little feet hit the floor, I looked down at her with our difference in height. She stared up at me with large dark eyes, her short black ponytail lied on the back of her neck, and the dress fit around her slender neck and shoulders so nicely. She automatically looked concerned, and then I looked away, tugging her out the door. You okay? Did the food make you feel sick or something? She questioned on our way out. I gave her a quick grin with a thumbs up. I'm just excited about where we're going next. She seemed very relieved. I am too. When we observed the neighboring building, we were both amazed at all the bright lights and decorations. The sky was beginning to dim to an orange tone and the lights set a cool mood. I don't remember it being this big. She looked up. I heard that they added an arcade, but I was never sure. But it's obvious that they did. I mean, look how much bigger it looks. I looked down at her with a smile but turned as I simply got a glimpse of her. It kept making my heart pound with force. I opened the front door and it was completely packed with other teens and younger adults. They all waited in large lines to the register that had an advertising for an M-rated shooter game. I didn't want to get caught in all the chaos, so I checked over my shoulder to make sure Sasuke was still close to me, and I went straight for a door on the left wall labeled Arcade. I could feel her small hands clutch to my shirt and the warmth of her breath as she rested her face onto my back. I gulped and continued through the mass of people. Her warmth on my back was beginning to make my knees tremble. I was surprised to see almost emptiness as I entered the door to the arcade with only few playing games. Sasuke released herself from my back and began wiping her skirt. I looked down at her as she wiped out a few wrinkles and folds at the bottom. I admired her light-toned skin and small feet. As she was finishing, she looked up and said, "Why is it so crowded?" Her eyes met mine and the tension made me feel awkward. I think a new game came out today. I folded my arms when I noticed I started growing goosebumps. I figured that she would hurry over to a game to play. I looked away hoping she wouldn't notice how uneasy I felt from my expression. That was until my cold arms suddenly felt the warmth of Sasuke's hands on top of them. "Naruto, please be honest with me, why are you acting so strange?" She questioned with a serious tone. I attempted to hide my true feelings. It's nothing. From the pressure she put on my arms, I could tell that she raised herself on her toes. Her face was right under mine. "If there's a problem, then we can work it out. What's wrong?" She was still being serious and I already felt bad for making her worry. Though it was my fault, I should have been able to control myself better. Though it was nothing compared to what I was about to lose control and do. It can't be worked out. I've already went against what I promised myself I wouldn't do. I replied sternly and truthfully. I had told myself that I would never look at her in any other way, and that day, I went too far and did just that. Seeing her adorable concerned face as I opened my eyes was the last straw, and as my heart pounded and chest fluttered, I only wanted and thought of one thing. Sasuke. I lifted her up to me and I pressed my lips against hers. I could not forget the feeling of our first kiss and I wished to feel it all over again. She began to wrap her arms around me as she came back to reality and figured out what had been occurring. Everything about that moment was making my heart trample so quickly. My body shook from nervousness that I never felt around her before. My body and mind simply felt the greatest it ever had. Until I felt as if I suddenly opened my eyes and realized what I was doing. My stomach sunk and I quickly put her back on the ground to stop us. She fell back and landed on her bottom. She then looked up at me with large, sad yet confused eyes. In Naruto. She stuttered, she looked as if she were about to sob a river. Words could not explain my deep sorrow and regret, so I backed away from her slowly as my nervous body shook and shivered. My breath was falling short and the lights from the games were beginning to blur as my eyes started to drain tears. I tried to wipe them quickly and my back hit the door as I kept blindly walking back. I decided that I could stand to see her hurt like that after what I had done, so I opened the door and sprinted out of the game store. I could faintly hear her say as I opened the door, Don't leave me, Naruto." I was already out of breath and I left a trail of tears behind me as I made it past the ramen shop. I peeked over my shoulder in fear that she was following me, but no one was there. I figured she would run after me eventually, so I set my sights on the manga store that we had visited that also wasn't very far away. When I made it there quickly, my chest burned from the sensation of breathing so hard. I stepped into the very warm bookstore and found chairs for reading and sat down to rest. I turned to the front door and noticed how dark it had gotten since we were standing in front of the game store. The sky had changed from orange to a dark tint mixed with pale orange at the horizon. I suddenly began to worry and my body and mind just couldn't take the strain of what had happened. My empty chest felt a deep sinister pain that made me want to die. I quickly pulled out my phone and suddenly wondered how Sasuke would be able to get back to the other town. It was nearing time for the train to leave and I hoped that she would get on it instead of worrying about me. As I found her in my contacts and began a new text message, I wondered whether I should go back and apologize or prepare myself to simply face her. I took a deep breath and as my heart started to pump faster just from thinking about the kiss again, I knew what my answer was. Go ahead and take the train home. I have a lot of thinking to do, so we can meet up tomorrow before school. I texted to her. When I closed my phone, another thought suddenly jumped into my mind. This has gotten too far out of hand. I know what I have to do and I just remembered someone who can help me. I opened it once again and dialed a familiar number in quickly. A deep voice answered. Is this Naruto? Why yeah, I need your help, so I decided to call instead of text. This is Shino, right? I replied. Yes it is, what is it you need? Well, I just remembered what you had told me a few months ago and I was wondering if it's still true. You do know what I'm referring to, don't you? I responded. There was a slight pause, then he replied, yes, and as far as I know, it's still the same. She sits beside me in class and it's every day that I notice and hear it. Do you plan to do something about it now? I bit my lip in confusion and I thought for a moment, yes, I think I do. I'm gonna do it tomorrow. That's good to hear, you're going to make her so happy. I assure you. My depressed face and attitude began to slowly grow a smile. Thanks Shino, see you tomorrow. Bye. I closed my phone and sunk back into the soft chair. Though I was still so worried about Sasuke, I was finally going to be able to go back on my original promise just from a phone call. Author's note. A few months prior to this, Shino informed Naruto that Hinata has a crush on him because Shino sits beside her in class and she spilled the truth about it to him. Naruto never attempted to talk to her about it because he was always so busy with Sasuke. Naruto called Shino to make sure she still likes him. Sorry about having to add this note in, but I wanted to make sure that no one is confused of the situation without having to add a flashback. My eyes opened suddenly as something started to nudge at my shoulder. I sat up quickly in fear, forgetting what was going on. Sir, we're closing now. A young girl wearing glasses had her hand placed on my shoulder. I rubbed my eyes. I'm sorry, I guess I fell asleep. I felt dizzy as I sat up and my cell phone fell to the floor as I stood up. Upon picking it up, I noticed the darkness of outside. It was completely pitch black except for the streetlights and advertisements. I waved at the lady as she locked the door behind me. A cool breeze wandered by as I looked around to see hardly anyone else on the street. I opened my phone to see what time it was and I almost gasped. I had 3 missed calls and 7 unread messages. It was not surprising to see that they were all from Sasuke. I read through them quickly and they were all basically saying that everything is alright, that she wanted to see me and that she made it home alright. But I couldn't yet, not after I betrayed her. I'll catch a ride to my house and talk to her at school tomorrow. I'll wait on telling her that I'm asking Hinata out. I said to myself, looking up at the sky that reminded myself of my feelings. The black void that was my chest, and every tiny star, being every piece of my shattered heart. My words or hand could not pull him back as I reached out to him. He stormed out of the arcade without saying a word. He left me with only confusion and loneliness. As I looked down at my dirtied skirt, droplets of liquid splashed upon it and I wiped my eyes wondering what I was weeping about. I'm not sad that he kissed me, it felt so wonderful actually. Just like the first one. But I wonder why he did it though. Did he react to seeing me in a dress, or does he actually love me too? I buried my face into my arms as I sat there on the cold floor. I suddenly glanced up at the door and my eyes opened wide. Why you're coming back aren't you? You promised that you'll never abandon me. I haven't even moved because I'm expecting you to walk back in that door any second. My thoughts clouded with sadness and loss of hope and tears began to fall faster. After waiting for at least another minute, I slowly walked out of the game store and looked around as a heavy depressing wind wandered by. I quickly pulled out my phone and attempted to call him. I sighed as it ended with no answer, but texted him immediately after that. I told him that everything was alright and that he didn't have to run away. I glared down at my wallpaper for a couple of minutes, waiting on the usual quick reply, but nothing happened. I could check all the places we visited. But with the way he ran away, it wouldn't surprise me if he went home and will never speak to me ever again. I hope not. He's the only thing I live for. If it weren't for him, I would probably just end it all. I closed my phone and dragged myself towards the train station on the other side of town. Along the way, I kept glancing at my phone which had still done nothing. I sent him a few more texts saying that I was going to go ahead home, hoping that a response would give me proof that whether he went home or was still in town. I kept staring at the phone until train halted to a stop in front of me and I slowly wandered in with a crowd. As I was surrounded by strangers, my heart felt as if it fell into my stomach and head felt heavy. In Naruto, how could you? You know that I'm not good with other people yet you abandoned me in a town that I'm hardly familiar with. A part of me is angry with you but another is just wanting to see you again. I stared out at the darkening sky as the train began moving. After arriving at my home from the train ride that felt like a year had passed, I stopped at my doorstep and pulled out my phone once more. Though it still had an empty wallpaper with no responses, I texted him once again, telling him that I arrived home safely. There was not a single sound as I locked the door behind me and pulled off my shoes, though a light surprised me from the kitchen and a woman's voice called to me. "Oh Sasuke, I'm glad you're here. You're just in time for dinner." I shook frighteningly as I slowly made my way to the kitchen and the light was gone and the loud ticking of the clock echoed through the room as I walked in. I fell to my knees and buried my face into my hands, they began to drip with tears. I guess it's been a while since I've been alone here. Lately I've been staying with Naruto. My voice was the only one in the house. I practically jumped off the floor as my phone rang a short tone from my pocket. I used one hand to wipe my eyes as I pulled it out and opened it. One new message from Uzumaki Naruto. My eyes opened wide and a smile grew. He texted me back. The message said, "Let's talk when you get to school tomorrow." I jumped up to my feet and leapt onto my bed. After changing into my pajamas, I held the phone close to me as I excitedly went to sleep. After what only felt like a minute, I opened my eyes to the bright sunshine beaming in through my window and I leaned up but gasped. 2 figures stood in front of me that glared at me furiously. My eyes adjusted to the light and I became frightened. The 2 figures looked exactly like me except one wore black clothes while the other wore white. They both stated in unison, "Well, am I going crazy?" I questioned. The one wearing black gave me an irritated expression and smirked. "You're clearly dreaming, though I think you are crazy for being excited to see that asshole Naruto." I began to reply, "Wha." The one wearing white replied loudly, "No, he's clearly the only friend she has. He's been there for her and I'm sure he had a good reason for running away." I tried to talk again but the one wearing black interrupted me. He's a dumb ass. Sasuke has been the best friend that he has ever had and he doesn't even show how he truly feels. What if he actually has no feelings for her and the kiss was just his dirty male instincts taking over? Then the white replied, but we don't know that. What if he actually has strong feelings for her but just doesn't know how to show them? Either way, she has been incredibly good to him and has been completely honest with her feelings. He knows that she is crazy for him yet it's almost like he doesn't care. Only a fool wouldn't take advantage of this situation. The white-clothed one glanced over at the sun shining in and smiled. You can't be angered just from the choices that he's made. Obviously he's a good person because he's the only one who doesn't judge Sasuke and shows her that he really cares. He probably doesn't want to ruin what they have by getting into a relationship with her. The other smirked again, but it could make it better. The friendship isn't guaranteed to be ruined. It could get better if he gives in without fear. But from his recent actions, it's clear that he can't do that and we should leave him be. Even though he's let her cry on his shoulder before, he made her cry last night. I sat watching the entire time, listening closely to what they both said. I quickly learned what was going on. I had been thinking about it so much in my mind that my two decisions were at each other's throats in the dream. I still had both thoughts in my head, whether to keep trying at him or to leave him as only a friend. The two thoughts looked over when my alarm began to sound. They each began to dissolve into floating dust and each said, "It's time. Now choose." The dust floated over to me and flew into my forehead and a strong feeling came over me right as I woke up to my alarm. My room looked exactly the same as in the dream but I was alone. My fists tightened and my heart pumping strong. Alright, I can do this. After quickly getting ready, I was off to school and my chest felt warm on my way there. Though I had usually walked to school with him, the trip felt like it lasted longer than usual. I stopped outside of the class and took a deep breath. When I walked in, I looked over to the corner where we sat and I received an eerie sensation in my gut. Naruto stood beside his seat, and in front of him stood Hinata who was blushing. I thought nothing of it at first because it seemed like she did that quite a bit. When I made it to the last row of desks, about to head to the back of the room, it felt as if time halted slowly and a cold feeling tore through my body. Something about the situation in the room didn't feel right. As my eyes wandered around the room, almost everyone seemed to be invisible from my sight and the group in the back of the room created the strange aura. Shino stood at his seat on the opposite side of the room with a demanding glare at Naruto. Naruto himself seemed to have an awkward expression as he looked down at Hinata. Her nervous expression shifted to a growing smile and she nodded and headed back to her normal seat. As Naruto sat down, he looked down at his desk with a satisfied face. I continued slowly down the aisle of desks and looked at him when I made it to my seat directly beside him. His blue eyes shined from the window behind me and he smiled, "Good morning." I took my seat with no response and looked at him with no emotion shown. How could he act like this when all of that happened? Before I make my decision, I want to hear what he has to say. Because the text said that we're talking, I assumed something about last night. For once I looked serious and stern. Why? He looked back at me with a worried face and exhaled. "The whole evening was amazing and you looked so cute. I guess I just lost control. Sorry, it won't happen again." My face went back to its normal defenseless and depressed look. Why not? You know that I love you, yet you apologize for something that I've always wanted to do. I began to blush. He put his head down on his arms and turned to me. "I know you do, but that's one of the reasons why I don't want to do those things. We're so close and friends stay friends most of the time and are able to work things out easily. But a scar from a relationship can sometimes never heal. That's not something that I want to happen. I want to be close friends with you for as long as I possibly can." I stared at him with wide eyes even when Kakashi began to teach and Naruto no longer looked at me. What he had said made my chest feel so peculiar. I didn't know if it was good or bad. He really wanted to stay close to me for as long as he could without the possibility of it being ruined. But he still didn't want to take the next step, where I was already standing and waiting. I did not say a single word for the rest of class and neither did Naruto. It seemed that the situation was taking a toll on both of us. Though I kept thinking, if he doesn't want to ruin it, then that means he does love me too but just isn't taking risks. So, he really does like me. After Kakashi dismissed us, I walked around the side of the class as usual expecting Naruto to be behind me, but I knew something was strange when he went around to back to the other side of the room near Shino and Hinata. She began to blush again and walked closely by his side. Shino followed a few feet behind. I hurried over to them as they were walking out the door, and one glimpse was all it took to make my chest sink and my stomach twist. The reason why they walked so closely was because they were holding each other's hands. I stopped beside Shino, who observed them like a hawk. "You better keep your promise, Naruto," he said to himself. When I exited the building, Hinata and Naruto stood by one of the trees near the front and waved me over. Hinata smiled brightly at me and politely bowed. "Hi Sasuke. Did your sister like the dress?" I immediately blushed and my eyes met Naruto's. He scratched his head in confusion. "Wha? Oh, she loved it. She already left town, but she really liked the dress," I hastily replied. Naruto suddenly realized what she must have meant. "Why don't we all go get something to eat? We could get something from the convenience store near my house." Hinata smiled and looked over at Shino, who walked slowly by them with his normal attitude. "Hey Shino, you wanna come too?" Hinata suggested. "You're coming too, right Sasuke?" I was surprised to hear that, and I became happy that I was going to be able to spend time with Naruto and Hinata, who was being very friendly to me. But the expression on Naruto's face gave me second thoughts. He looked down as if he were sad that I was tagging along. Shino approached us and positioned his round sunglasses. "I suppose I can go. I have nothing else to do." Sorry, I can't. I have things to do, so maybe another time," I said as I hurried away from them. They all looked back at me as I rounded the corner in the direction of my house. Naruto sighed and looked down at Hinata with a grin. "Let's go." It didn't feel quite the same as I walked through the door to my homeroom without my friend by my side. My eyes met Shino's glasses and he nodded at me from across the room. I walked over to the opposite side of the room from where I normally sat and approached Hinata, who was preparing her books at her desk. Hinata, can I talk with you in private?" I said at a quiet tone. She looked up surprised and her eyes were wide. Okay." We walked over the opposite side of the room and I looked down at her and gulped. "There's something that I have to ask you." She stared at me with nervous and questioning eyes and didn't even say anything at that point. She put her hands together and twiddled her fingers in anxiety. I glanced over at Shino once more, who still glared at me. After a deep breath and my strong intentions in mind, I asked her, "Do you want to go out with me?" I bowed in politeness and looked upon the floor as I bent. What I said didn't feel right because in my mind, I felt as if I were betraying someone. But I also wanted to help that same person. After not hearing a reply, I lifted back up at her. She was short of breath and her face blushed very quickly. Her eyes grew even bigger and she began to slightly shiver. Shino did say that she had a thing for me, but geez, I didn't expect this much of a reaction. I thought. Her eyes wandered around. Why me? I was surprised to hear that and my heart sank because at first I didn't know what to say. I didn't want to have to do all this, but hopefully it will be for the best. I said to myself, because I like you." I looked up and scratched my chin. Her nervous face shifted into a big smile. She didn't seem quite as tense anymore. "I'll go out with you," she bowed. I felt as if a great weight were lifted from my shoulders and I sighed in relief. "That's good, so how about I meet up with you after school? I don't have anything to do today." She kept grinning. "Oh okay, I'll see you then." She hurried back to her seat with excitement and as I sat down, I noticed Sasuke walking towards her seat beside me. The person whom I really wanted to say those things to. But just couldn't. Just looking at her cute face in the morning with the sunlight framed around her made my chest thump to the point of pain. I even had to work up the courage to say, "Good morning." After we discussed what had happened and my intentions, the rest of the school day was quiet because I was strangely nervous and Sasuke must have been still upset. As soon as Kakashi dismissed us at the end of the day, I walked around to Hinata so that we could spend the evening together. When she stood and began to walk beside me, I felt Shino's breath in my ear. "Remember." I glanced at him right before walking out of the door with her. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see Sasuke fairly close behind me. That's when I reached over and grabbed Hinata's hand. I held it lightly so I could give off the fact that we were together. I didn't look back as we walked out of the school and Hinata seemed to nervous once again. When we reached one of the large beautiful trees in the courtyard, she let go of my hand and turned to Sasuke who was approaching us with a depressed expression. Hinata put her hands together. Sasuke, did your sister like the dress? She cheerfully asked. As Sasuke replied, my thoughts wandered in confusion. I suddenly felt tense and I interrupted them. Why don't we all go get something to eat? We could get something from the convenience store near my house. As Shino slowly walked by, Hinata asked if he were also coming. He agreed to and we all looked over at Sasuke when she also asked her. She looked down at the ground and her knees began to tremble. Sorry, I can't. I have things to do, so maybe another time. She took off running and rounded the corner to her house. I sighed in relief. I wish she could come, but it would probably be easier if she weren't around. I thought. I smiled at Hinata, lightly grabbing her hand again. Let's go. Her bright eyes glistened in the dusk sun and she nodded. We all three slowly headed towards the convenience store. At first it was very quiet but broke the silence. So I've noticed you two have always sat together. Have you known each other very long? Hinata smiled. Yeah, it's been a couple of years. He's my best friend. Hearing those words made me feel very warm. That's what I was to Sasuke and that's what she was to me. I looked over my shoulder to see Shino looking down and with a slight smile. Which was rare for him. I was glad that I was finally able to get Hinata out of her shell and able to talk easier. She looked up at me. So, do you have a best friend? Is it Sasuke? My body had been at ease but that's when it began tensing up again. Yeah. He's awesome. He's always been there for me and when I stopped, they both looked at me, wondering what was wrong. I wish I could say the same. I finished, feeling a sharp pain tear through my chest. It's okay, no matter what, friends can make it through anything. No matter whatever happens, as long as you and your friends stick together, nothing can tear you apart. She kept grinning, looking back at Shino. I stood there in deep thought, wondering if what she said was really true. Can nothing really tear friends apart? Even if they've taken the next step? You and Sasuke look good together. Hinata added. I turned in shock, wondering if Hinata knew of Sasuke's great secret. What? You know, some people just look good as friends. Some friends just look like they're destined to be best friends with one another. You and Sasuke have that look. She replied. I exhaled in relief. I had thought she'd known at first and I wouldn't have known how to react. We kept going further in the direction of my house until we reached the convenience store that was right down the street. We walked in and as always, I was overwhelmed and had no idea what to get to eat. I ended up getting instant ramen and the others got onigiri, rice balls. After Hinata had told me about friendship, I was feeling much better but it still didn't feel right without my best friend there with us. Though for the first time in a while, I was hanging out with people that weren't Sasuke. It had only been me and her for the few months prior. It felt good being around other people again, but still not as good as her. When we stepped out, my eyes wandered down the street and I began to ponder my thoughts. They each looked at me in confusion. What's up, Naruto? Shino silently questioned. My house is right down the street. How about we go in there to eat instead of out here? My parents probably aren't home yet but it's alright. I asked. Shino actually seemed like he was enjoying himself. Probably because he didn't really have many friends. He nodded and we looked over at Hinata. In Naruto-kun's house, with no adults, she said to herself, beginning to shiver. Shino placed a hand on her shoulder. I'll be there, it's okay. She smiled at him and nodded, so we held our food and were on our way to my house close by. Sasuke page 0 versus transition. Meanwhile at Sasuke's house, as soon as I arrived home, I threw down my stuff and I just wanted a corner to sit in. The entire situation had me so confused and desperate for answers. Though it seemed quite clear that something was going on between Hinata and Naruto. Would he actually date someone? Knowing how I feel, well, I suppose he can do whatever he wants. This burden that I am carrying right now doesn't feel like just sadness. Am I actually feeling jealousy? I stopped, being embarrassed of saying so much to myself out loud. So I began to think, maybe this won't be so bad. He has a girlfriend and I can be her friend. She has always been very nice and I doubt she means any harm. Maybe I've just gotten accustomed to having him all to myself and now it's making me feel jealous. Though I suppose that doesn't mean that I own him. He can do whatever he wants, right? But it sure doesn't seem like what he wants. What he said earlier makes it seem like. My thoughts were interrupted by my phone buzzing from my pocket. I smiled as I looked at it. Naruto was calling me. Hello? I answered. Hey. Week 3 decided to come to my house since it's so close to the store and I was just wondering. I'm wondering if you maybe wanted to come by. It's just us three and I'd like you to be here too. Naruto slowly replied, he carried much tension in his words. I was so surprised to hear that. I figured that with him being with his girlfriend and another friend, he would be happy and didn't need me there. He seemed like he didn't even want to be around me today. But just hearing his sweet voice on the other end makes me forgive him. Am I an idiot? I guess I can come by. Hey, is anyone around you? I questioned. There was a slight pause. I told them that I had to use the restroom. They're alone downstairs. After making sure, I continued, okay. I guess I've gotten used to being over there. Being here, alone with no one in this quiet and empty house, makes me cry every day. Naruto. I had completely lost it and I didn't want to cry over the phone, but I did. He responded immediately, please come over, grab some clothes and stay the night. Every time I think of you being alone at your house, it also makes me cry sometimes. And I'm so sorry for everything that I've done to make you feel lonely like that. Especially the night in the arcade. All of that mess was my fault. I wiped my eyes as my smile grew, it's okay. I guess I was showing too much skin with that dress too. Only you've seen me like that, Naruto. My intense flames of jealousy began to dissipate as I realized that. He chuckled, I hope I can see it again. My flames grew, but not of jealousy. Oh okay, I'll be there shortly, I replied, hanging up. I held my phone close to my chest and my tear-covered face began to blush. I guess I am an idiot. I heard laughter as I slowly made my way downstairs from the bathroom. I slid my phone back into my pocket and I began to feel happier, knowing that my best friend was on the way. I stopped and glanced over at Shino and Hinata. They sat next to each other on the floor and Shino was chuckling as he looked over conversing with her. Most definitely the first time I had ever seen him enjoying himself that much. I told you to get something else. She laughed. He grinned back at her. I don't know why I wanted these. I feel kinda silly because I don't even like them all that much. She placed her hands on her knees. I think you got it just because I did. When my foot touched the last step, he looked up at me and his expression altered. He seemed immediately awkward and he slightly moved farther from Hinata. Naruto, you look really happy. Hinata smiled. I grinned back. I called Sasuke. He's coming. I placed my hand on my face in surprise. And my face is getting warm just from saying that? I said to myself. I lowered my hand to my chest, that pounded furiously. Why can't I force myself to feel this way when I think about Hinata? She's so nice and I can tell that she has strong feelings for me. But I can't find it in me to expand these feelings. What's worse is that I've already began our relationship as a couple. I wonder if anyone has strong feelings for her. Hinata grinned. What? I questioned, sitting beside her. You just can't live without your best friend around. I think that's sweet. I don't really have a close friend that's a girl. She looked over at Shino, though I have Shino. He sat his arm against his face and looked away. Seeing how they acted towards each other made me curious of their relationship and in a way, it reminded me of mine and Sasuke's. I gave Hinata a serious expression. So, how long have you two been friends? She looked up with her finger against her chin, gazing into her memories. Well, we went to the same middle school but I don't think we had ever talked there. But when we both came here for high school, was when I first spoke to him. It was down the block from the school and both of us were a little lost. He asked me if I knew the directions and I honestly told him that I didn't know either. So we walked together and eventually found it. Though we were almost late. When we went into our homeroom, there were hardly any open seats because of how long we took, but there were two open on the left side of the room, in the back. So we sat together since we had already been together that morning. Well, we haven't moved seats ever since then. He's really the only person I've talked to regularly. I do talk to others, but not near as much. We both have our strengths and weaknesses in class, so I help him with a couple subjects and he helps me with some also. Sometimes we see each other out of school too, though we've never been to each other's houses. Sorry for talking so long about it. So I guess you and Sasuke are also like that? She finished. I sat astounded the entire time. I had no idea that they were so close and every second it sounded more and more similar to my relationship with Sasuke. Though I still questioned to myself if theirs was really like ours. In that it was getting so close that feelings and emotions were becoming twisted and confused. Shino still looked away with his head resting on his hand. It seemed that he didn't much like being part of story time. I looked back at her. That's almost just like me and Sasuke's relationship. Though he does help me more than I help him in class. I laughed with guilt, but I'm so glad that I was able to meet a person like him. It really makes me feel so glad that I'm able to be his friend, because when I met him, no one was. Hinata's joyful expression transitioned to a surprised and disgusted one. Really? She questioned. Yep, I added. I noticed that he talked to some people because he was trying to fit in or find his group because he was new. But no one seemed to stick around to him. I've always enjoyed being social to lots of people, so I began hanging out with him. Though immediately I noticed that as I did, less and less people talked to or hung out with me. But I didn't care because I found a really awesome person that I have a lot in common with. I guess it's because he looks girly that people thought negative of him, but once he told me his story and why he was glad that I spent time with him, I knew, and I still know, that nothing will divide us. I smiled as I poured my heart out. Shino glanced up at me with a different expression and Hinata looked as if she were about to cry. That's just like you, Naruto, she stated. Shino also lightened up. He also understood what it was like. POV transition to Sasuke. I can't believe how fast I made it over here. I'm just so excited though. I hate being alone. I thought as I adjusted my strap over my shoulder. I carried extra clothes in a bag. At that point I was standing right in front of Naruto's house. I took a long deep breath that filled me with happiness. As I took a few steps I remembered, that's right. Shino and Hinata are here. Well, this might be awkward. But I still can't shake this pain in my chest when I think of someone else other than me being inside his home. I quietly opened the door with a suspicious glare around it as I slowly opened it. I didn't see anything out of the ordinary, so I gently sat my bag down and slowly made my way down the main hallway. That's when I heard the sound of Naruto's voice. At first I was going to step into the living room on the left, but I wanted to hear what he was saying first. I inched to the wall for a moment to listen. So I began hanging out with him. Though immediately I noticed that as I did, less and less people talked to or hung out with me. I almost gasped out loud at hearing it. Did I ruin his popularity? I felt the same sharp pain in my chest again, but I wanted to hear him continue. But I didn't care because I found a really awesome person that I have a lot in common with. I guess it's because he looks girly that people thought negative of him, but once he told me his story and why he was glad that I spent time with him, I knew, and I still know, that nothing will divide us. He paused and took a breath at the end, as if he were holding back from getting too emotional. My eyes widened and my knees began to tremble. His words that were so sweet made me realize how much he didn't want to lose me. Is this why he feels so strongly about not going any further with me? I held my hand against my chest and warmth fluttered through it. It makes me so happy that you feel that way, but you're wrong if you think I'm gonna give up on you, I thought as I smiled. Damn it, my ramen. Naruto came blasting out the doorway into the kitchen down the hall. He ran by without noticing me, but I think I turned as pale as a ghost from that sudden shout. I breathed heavily for a moment and stepped through the doorway so that I could make myself comfortable before Naruto would come back in. Hinata sat politely on her knees and Shino sat near with his legs crossed. They both looked up at me with a happy expression. Hinata jumped up and gave me a bow and a quick hug. Hi Sasuke, I'm glad you could make it. Shino gave me a slight hand motion. I figured that after hearing what Naruto said, they must have felt sorry for me or something. And felt the need to be more caring, which I didn't mind. So, Naruto invited you? She questioned. I sat down next to them. Yeah, he just said that you guys are having fun and wanted me to join. She giggled and began to blush. I suddenly wondered if it were something I said. What is it? I just think that it's so cool that you two are together so much. She answered. Well, he has always been there for me. I replied, trying not to say too much. Being a guy, at the moment, I couldn't be too emotional talking about another guy. Seeing Hinata's eyes drift to the doorway, I turned around. There stood Naruto, holding a bowl of ramen, and he had a blank expression on his face. Well, so did I. Hey, Naruto. I greeted awkwardly. His eyes closed with a big grin. Hey. He sat down beside me. We both looked away quickly when we realized that we were still staring at each other. Hinata's eyes sparkled with the sight of two guys in best friend relationship. Shino adjusted his dark glasses. Why are you just now eating, Naruto? He laughed as if he felt stupid. I forgot to heat this up once we started talking. Shino shot a reply very quickly. I can see why you need help from Sasuke in class. Naruto stuck out his lower lip. Not my fault that I can hardly remember stuff. I giggled. I think it's just that you don't pay attention. Hinata and Shino both joined in laughter too. Naruto defended himself. Well, I pay attention to you. I looked away, and I could feel the tension rising. Though Hinata thought that moment was adorable between us. How about the next time you have trouble on a subject, we could all study together? All four of us. Hinata suggested. Sounds good, said Shino. I'd like that, Naruto exclaimed. They all looked at me. Sure, that would be fun. I replied happily. After we conversed and laughed more about things that happened in school, I really started to enjoy myself. It was what I always wanted, and my best friend, whom I loved, was also there. So the evening was amazing. Shino pulled out his phone and checked the time. He immediately stood up and walked towards the door to the hallway. Well, I should head home for dinner. Thanks for inviting me over, Naruto. Well, I'll see you tomorrow morning, Hinata. He began to walk away. She stopped him. Hey, wait. Why don't I give you my number? Even though we've known each other for a while, I've never texted you. Shino paused for a moment and slowly turned around with a nervous expression. Sure. They exchanged numbers and he left. Hinata sat back down next to Naruto and we all looked in random places in the room, trying to start another conversation. Naruto stood up. I'm gonna get us some drinks. Cola as usual for you, Sasuke? And you, Hinata? I'll have the same, she responded. As he left the room, I realized that it was just me and Hinata. I really liked her because she was so friendly and nice. But she also was with the person whom I adored more than anyone else. That basically made her my rival that I wasn't going to lose to. Naruto arrived with the drinks and we didn't talk as lively as we did for the next little while, and eventually Hinata received a call to be at home and she gave Naruto an awkward goodbye as she left. I hated that the evening was almost over, but at the same time, I was relieved to be only with Naruto and to have him to myself. I leaned back against the floor and sighed. Why are your parents still gone? I asked. I saw his face leaning over me. Well, to be honest, I knew that they wouldn't be back, even though I told the other two that they are running late. I felt a rush of energy surge through me that made my toes curl. So we're alone again? He nodded, walking over to take the empty glasses to the kitchen. I sat up and placed the back of my hand to my cheek. It was feeling fine just a moment ago. Why did it get so hot all of a sudden? When Naruto walked back into the room, he looked at me as I sat with my knees up and I twiddled with toes and ran one hand through my hair, rustling it purposely. His expression seemed worried at first and his cheeks turned red. I suppose that he had gotten used to me being a boy for the evening. He headed for the stairs and turned to me. Well, wanna do the usual? You almost beat that game the last time you played it. I grinned. Yeah, this is definitely my favorite thing to do. Just hanging out with you in your room without a care in the world. He smiled at me as he made his way up. It's my favorite too. Though it felt strange having someone else from school in my house today. But you're still the only one that's been in my room. My warmth intensified and I followed him to his room. And the rest of the night was spent exactly like I wanted it to. I sat with my back against the bed and enjoyed his video games. And he lied on his stomach at the end of the bed with his head lying near me. Of course he had his manga out reading it carefully and sometimes we would even swap. But I lied about it being exactly how I wanted it to. The way I really wanted to spend it was to be lying with him in that bed, with him embracing me. To whisper into my ear that everything is going to be okay because he will never leave my side. And then we kiss until our lips are bleeding. I opened my eyes suddenly with fright. I breathed heavily and I could feel a drop of sweat traveling down my face. Naruto crouched in front of me with a concerned expression. Hey, what's wrong? He gently slid his palm down my cheek, feeling of my temperature. I suddenly realized what had happened. When I lied my head back to fantasize, I began to fall asleep. I must have scared myself awake. Sorry. I just dozed off. I wiped my droopy eyes. All of a sudden I felt myself being lifted from the ground and I looked up to see Naruto looking down at me, holding me in his arms and carrying me to the head of the bed. I reached up and put my arm on his shoulder and I felt as if I were a little kitten being taken by my master to my little bed. I leaned my face closer against his warm chest and I felt myself being gently placed onto the bed. I looked up at him as I felt the sensation of the room slowly spinning. He leaned over. You're about to fall asleep. You just go ahead to bed and I'll put out the futon for myself in a minute. Okay? The entire situation just made my heart beat so fast and loud that I could barely hear what he was saying. I pulled my knees close to me and bundled up as he wrapped the covers around me. The last thing I saw before my eyes closed themselves was him staring at me, with an expression so deep that I haven't seen anything like it before. I felt a great sensation through my body as I stretched my legs and arms outward. The morning sun glistened through the window, waking me up as usual when I slept on the futon. I wiped my eyes and slowly stood up. Almost nothing could compare to the feeling of waking up after a great sleep. Even though I didn't sleep on my comfy bed, my best friend did though. That's when I looked over and my chest began to warm and flutter wildly. The sun also shined over the bed, illuminating over Sasuke. But that wasn't all. She lied on her side, facing me. Her cheeks were red. Her hands were in front of her open mouth and the covers were ruffled so one leg was on top. Her shorts were slightly pulled from the blanket so most of her leg was showing. I slowly made my way beside the bed and observed her. My chest was pounding from just the sight, though I also felt guilt. I am such a pervert. I'm standing here watching my best friend while she sleeps. I really need to stop, she might wake up and see me. But my eyes are locked on her, I just can't look away. I thought to myself. I slowly bent over, getting a closer look at her. She started to move her hands and her mouth opened wide as she yawned. My heart sank and I immediately thought that I was caught. I leaned back quickly, but she turned to the opposite side and I heard her start to breathe through her mouth again. I sighed in relief and began to observe again. When she had turned over, the covers had ruffled even more. So then the whole top half of her body was showing. Her shirt was slightly pulled up and I could see a little bit of her back. But that was when I noticed something else. Her arms were almost covered in bumps and I saw her shiver. Shush, she's cold, I thought as I reached down. I began to feel myself shake as well as I grabbed the covers and slowly pulled them up to her face. A warm sensation shot through my chest. I felt good just to help in that little way. But that's when I noticed something that made my chest feel even warmer. On my side, there was enough room for me to lay beside her and cover up also. I inched towards the bed at the idea of it. No, what are you doing, you idiot? You can't just crawl in bed with someone. Especially if it's your best friend. I thought. I glanced over at the clock as I walked back. 5:37. It's way too early to get ready for school. But Dad is probably up and about to go to work. I said to myself, leaving my room. As I stepped down from the final step, Minato made his way out of the living room doorway. He seemed surprised. Naruto? You're up early. Sorry. I couldn't sleep. I replied. Sorry that me and Kushina made it home late last night. Did Sasuke stay over? He questioned, fixing his tie. Yeah, I should have asked, shouldn't I began. He gave me a stern expression. Naruto, we've told you 1,000 times. He can come over whenever he wants. We love his company. Out of your friends, he's one of the only polite and responsible ones. I'm glad you're nice to the boy. I smiled, thanks. It means a lot. He rubbed my hair as he walked by. Well, I'm off to work. See you later, Naruto. I sighed as I made my way up the stairs and opened the door to my room. Sasuke was still covered up and that brought a smile to my face. I'll just go back to sleep for a few more hours, until I need to get ready for. My train of thought halted as I saw the bed once again. I sighed my pathetic sudden thoughts. I lied back down on the futon and closed my eyes in attempt to fall asleep. As a little while went by, I sat up and glanced up at the clock. 6:02. I grumbled and cussed under my breath. Damn it, why can't I sleep? I just feel so weird right now for some reason. My eyes wandered over to Sasuke. She was facing me again. She's a really uneasy sleeper. Or maybe she's having a bad dream. I said to myself. After a few minutes of staring at her unintentionally, I stood up again and began pacing the floor. I could usually sleep fine, but that weird feeling that I felt all night was keeping me from getting any sleep and it was really starting to annoy me. I sat down at my desk and slammed my head down against it in irritation. Why me? Is it because of? Don't even think about it, Naruto, you're going out with Hinata now. There's a lot to like about her, right? But when I think about her, I end up thinking about. I lifted my head up and turned around. Sasuke was turning again, and seemed to slightly shaking her head. I began to feel a pain in my chest. She really isn't sleeping well. I hope that she's alright. For some reason, she's really worrying me right now. I stood up and walked over to the bed. The expression on her face made me feel nauseous. It was the same look when someone was about to cry, but her face was bright red and she was still shivering. That's when I became very concerned and sat on my knees beside the bed, reaching to her face. Her forehead was so warm and I was able to definitely tell that she had a fever. My hand was still on her head when she slowly opened her eyes, and still holding that expression that made me feel sick, she looked at me with those extravagant dark eyes and slowly spoke. "In Naruto." I removed my hand and stared back at her with my chest about to explode. "Are you feeling okay?" She exhaled from her mouth. "My body hurts for some reason, and I feel kind of lightheaded." Her hands were still curled up to her and I placed mine on hers without intention. "Go back to sleep, I'll contact the school, you're definitely not going." Without saying a word, she smiled and nodded. It was about a minute after she closed her eyes that I realized my hands are still on hers. I stood up and yawned. "I'll just stay here to watch over her. I'll text Hinata later for our assignments." I grinned, heading back to my futon. I felt the pain in my chest fade away and I was able to finally fall asleep. After what seemed like only a minute, I woke to sound of my phone alarm. I reached beside me on the floor and pushed a button, quickly turning off the annoying tone. Damn, I forgot to turn that off. I hope that didn't wake up. My thoughts were interrupted as I turned to see her laying beside me, less than inches away. My breath fell short from seeing her face right beside me, even though she was still asleep. But I felt so much confusion and tried to scoot backwards and stand up. My blanket began to tug and after looking down, I realized that she was under the blanket also. I can't get up like this, I really don't want to wake her up. She's obviously sick and I want her to rest. But I can't sleep like this though. More importantly though, why is she lying here anyway? I almost jumped from my skin as she began to slightly move. I held as still as possible, not wanting her to notice me. Though I still didn't know the motive of what she did though. My eyes were locked closely as I observed her though. She put her hands up to her face and it almost looked as if she were about to suck on her thumb. My cheeks began to feel warmer and I shook my head. Geez, calm down. But it's so cute. My hands slowly reached down to my side and I began to slowly pull the blanket out from under me and I planned on slowly sliding off the futon. At first I thought I'd be successful but my stomach and chest ached as she slowly opened her eyes, showing her illuminating dark eyes. There were no words coming to mind as the awkward moment lasted for mere seconds, but then she slowly spoke. In Naruto. Then her eyes opened wide and she backed away quickly. Sorry. I didn't mean to do that. I have had problems with sleepwalking in the past. I guess I accidentally got in the futon with you. I'm so sorry. She began to cough loudly as she finished. I approached her with a smile. Oh, don't make such a fuss about it. Here you need to get more sleep. I slowly lifted her and sat her on the bed. She gazed up at me with large eyes and blushing cheeks. She almost seemed speechless until I turned away. Wait, are you going to school? She sat up. No, I'm staying here to watch you since you seem really sick. Let's go back to sleep, this is what time we'd normally get up for school. When I looked at her, she had the happiest smile I had ever seen. Oh okay. She lied back down and after a few moments, fell right back asleep. I slowly lied down and after a little while of no sleep, I sighed and sat up, scratching the back of my head. Sasuke was still sleeping so I stood up and quietly headed downstairs. The morning sun still peeked through all the windows and the hallway at the front door was lit up brightly. After using the phone to tell Kushina of what I was doing, I went to the kitchen to find something to eat. I guess I'll wait to text Hinata until after I eat. But I feel kinda bad that I'm eating while Sasuke is asleep. I'll just wait for her to wake up, I said to myself as I drank a quick glass of juice and headed back to my room. After sitting down at my desk, I pulled out my phone to text Hinata. She immediately replied with, "Is he okay?" I laughed. I had kept wondering why it seemed like Hinata liked Sasuke so much. I suppose it was because they both seemed so shy and didn't have many friends. I replied, "She'll be okay. I'm staying here to I caught myself and corrected the reply. He'll be okay. I'm staying here to watch him." I got a quick reply, "That's good. You two are such cute beefs." I blushed as a feeling of embarrassment shot through me. A girl saying that two guys look cute as best friends feels awkward as it is. But when he's actually a she, and a she that I've grown quite fond of as well. I texted a response, "Well thank you, but it's only natural to watch over someone that you care for. I felt kind of awkward as I said that, mostly because it felt like that I said was, I'm in love with my best friend. My chest pounded and I put my head down against the desk. The sound of my loud heart echoed through my ears. It felt weird just saying that in my head. I'm in love with my best friend. I slowly raised my head and my eyes wandered over the drawer. I felt a warm sensation around my chest and waist when I pulled out the dirty manga that I had been fearing. My kinky best friend. Maybe I should have gotten the next volume since he actually what am I thinking? That's how they make so much damn money. They use situations that are relevant and similar to the readers' lives. It's almost like the writer knows that I have a best friend whom I'm starting to really like. I thought to myself. I slowly opened the book to where I was on the night I had read some in the futon. The shy boy on the cover was still on the bed and the girl whom was his best friend was on her knees in front of him still taking care of him. He stopped moving his hands around to resist and started to enjoy it. I quickly closed it and put it in the drawer. My heart was already racing and that only made it worse. Not only was that wrong, but it's too early for something like that. I suddenly picked up my phone in surprise. I had completely forgot about my text conversation with Hinata. She had replied with, I kinda wish that I had a girl to call BFF. I guess all my friends are just boys. Just you, Sasuke and Shino. I felt bad for her and I began thinking. She lacks a girl to be able to call best friend. What if I tell her Sasuke's secret? I scratched my chin in wonder. They could become good girlfriends and Sasuke would probably feel happy too. She also doesn't have any girl as a best friend. And if I were around when they were doing their girly things. An image suddenly appeared into my thoughts. Sasuke and Hinata sat on my bed, both in their lingerie. They reached to one another, doing each other's makeup. They both looked over at me. Are we also cute beefs, Naruto? I shook my head and got rid of the fantasy. That book has already altered me into a pervert today. I thought to myself. I began a reply for Hinata. I realized that there could be a better time and place to let her in on Sasuke's secret, and I wanted to also get Sasuke's approval to spill it as well. Don't worry, you'll be able to make a girlfriend. But it could be worse, at least you have friends in the first place. I replied. After a long yawn, I turned around to check on Sasuke. She was still in a deep sleep and pretty much in the same position as before. I suppose it made her feel at ease that I was going to be with her, so she didn't toss and turn as much. I slowly rolled my computer chair towards the bed to get a closer look. It made no sense as to why just seeing her asleep made me feel so different inside. I sat my head sideways against my hand and tried to calm myself down. As the room began to spin, I saw flashes of lights and Sasuke walking towards me, saying my name. Naruto. 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 I felt my consciousness coming back and I slowly opened my eyes. I guess I fell asleep. I looked up and Sasuke sat right in front of me on her knees. I gasped and immediately rolled backwards. She also gasped, I'm sorry, I was just trying to wake you up because you didn't look comfortable. I laughed, sorry, you just surprised me. She got off the bed and stretched slowly. My body feels really achy. Also I've got this headache that won't go away. I stood up, there's some medicine for that downstairs, if you're hungry we could go down to eat too. She smiled, that's fine with me. I approached her and carefully picked her up. She freaked out, what are you doing? With her in my arms, we made it out the door and down the stairs. What does it look like I'm doing? I'm carrying you because you feel achy. She locked her hands together behind my neck. I looked down at her and said, is it weird to do this as best friends? She had a sly smile on her face. I think that if friends are close enough, they can do whatever they want. After saying that, she reached up to me and pecked a quick kiss on my cheek. I began to feel lightheaded and a burst of energy shot through my body. SSS Sasuke. I turned my head. I didn't want her to see my obvious cherry-colored cheeks. Her eyes widened. I'm sorry, I didn't really mean to do that. Well, I did. But I'm half asleep and I'm not thinking straight. I'm sorry, please don't be mad. I had no idea what to say back to her. My heart was beating so loudly that I wouldn't be able to hear myself anyway. I gently sat her down on the couch in the living room and sat on the other side on my knees, looking down at her with a blank expression. She was lying back with a worried face. In Naruto. Are you? I leaned down and with both arms wrapped around her waist I slowly inched my face closer to hers. There was an argument going around in my mind. Don't do this. She's your best friend, and not only that, you have a girlfriend now. It's like what she just said, if friends are close enough, they can do whatever they want. It's obvious that you two are more than close enough to be able to do this. Just tell her the truth also, it's been condemned for far too long. It was as if time were slowing to a near stop as my mind argued with itself. I chose one of those voices in my head and leaned closer to her. I felt her small hands push at my chest. No, you're just going to turn right around after this, just as before. You don't love me, I've realized that. So don't do this. I halted and I made sure that my eyes met hers. That's where you are wrong, Sasuke. She almost seemed angry at that point. It's obvious that you don't. You even have a girlfriend now. You love her, don't you? Of course not. I simply asked her out to try to make myself stop liking you so much because you're my best friend. I tried to force myself to fall in love with her, but there's no way that it could have happened, because I've been in love with you. She practically turned as white as a ghost. She could barely even stutter out an answer. Naruto. You have no idea how happy I feel right now. But, tell me something, if you've been in love with me, why have you avoided that love for so long? I didn't want to take a chance in ruining our friendship, because I know that once the border is crossed, it can no longer go back to the way it was before. Don't think that I haven't thought about it, because you're all that I think about all the time. And every time I saw you, I just wanted to embrace you and tell you how I felt, but I just couldn't. Also, there were two things said to me that made me realize that I should do this. On the day I asked out Hinata, she told me, no matter what, friends can make it through anything. No matter whatever happens, as long as you and your friend stick together, nothing can tear you apart. And also, what you just told me, that if friends are close enough, they can do whatever they want. I've learned that it doesn't matter if we take the next step, in the end, we're still best friends and nothing will tear us apart. I almost felt tears to my eyes as I finished. She was already crying below me. She wrapped her arms around me and pulled me into what I planned to do at first. Our lips touched for the third time.
That's all for now. If you enjoy this video, then please like, share and do comments.